Pokémon, the strongest trainer. Welcome back, brave explorers of impossible worlds. We are excited to have you here to continue this odyssey together. Before we continue, everything you'll hear is pure fiction, so please don't try to replicate combat techniques at home. This wonderful story and all its rights belong to its brilliant original author. We are only the messengers of entertainment. Want another dose of adventure? Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single chapter, and if you can't wait, our Patreon has exclusive surprises you'll love. Chapter 424, White Horse Crown King, the battle is about to begin. Upon hearing this, Feng instinctively looked up, only to be met with a pair of majestic eyes. This was a petite, slender figure, atop its head a massive, dark green bud resembling a crown, supported firmly by several silver-gray tentacles. Its neck, a dark green pearl-like pattern of blue, gray, and white triangles, lay arranged in a pattern. Its dark green arms held the reins firmly, its wings, evenly spaced in blue, gray, and white, drooping naturally. Its silver-white body and slender, pure white legs slung across its blizzard horse. Its demeanor exuded an indescribable grace and majesty. Its bright, pure blue eyes shone with a profound wisdom, as if it could see past, present, and future, nothing hidden from its gaze. This was the ancient king of the Galar region, the true ruler who once ruled the kingdom of plenty, the Bud Crown King. No. At this moment, it should be the White Horse Bud Crown King. Human, are you the one who trespassed upon my territory? The White Horse Flower Crown King sat upright, his demeanor elegant yet dignified. His voice was resonant and deep, a tone tinged with a deep awe that captivated all who saw him. The legendary King of Plenty. The White Horse Flower Crown King. Feng stared at the White Horse Flower Crown King with rapid breathing, his heart churning like a turbulent sea, his entire being lost in thought. The White Horse Flower Crown King's words seemed to carry a certain magical power, hammering heavily at Feng's heart. A terrifying majesty emanated from him, instantly making the air around him heavy and oppressive, until it fell silently into deathly silence. This was the majesty that belonged only to a king. Time passed. Seeing that Feng still hadn't replied, the White Horse Flower Crown King's voice grew even colder and more oppressive, a deep, humming sound echoing through the snow dust. Answer me, human, tell me your purpose. Upon hearing Rapacrest's words, Snowbreeze couldn't help but let out a whinnying. A strong chill emanated from its nose, and its pupilless eyes glared at Feng with arrogance. It was as if at a single command from Rapacrest, Snowbreeze would tread upon the ice and snow, its hooves pounding the ground, charging towards Feng and Charizard, defending the majesty of the King of Plenty. Feng was silent for a long moment, a look of awe and shock inevitably filling his eyes. Of all the legendary Pokémon he had ever encountered, the White Horse, Rapacrest, had left the deepest shock and awe in him. Its unwavering kingly demeanor was on full display. It offered a direct glimpse into the power of a high-level legendary. Nice to meet you, ancient king of the Galar region, the legendary King of Plenty. Feng's eyes softened with shock and awe, his expression returning to a calm state as he politely greeted the White Horse, Budcrest. On behalf of Ho-Oh, Reshiram, Mew, Groudon, and Kyurem, I greet you, A messenger of a legendary god from another region, Budcrest's azure eyes surveyed Feng, sensing the aura of numerous legendary Pokémon from him, and her eyebrows raised slightly in surprise. Human, you're quite interesting, I never thought someone would recognize me after all this time. Budcrest murmured softly, reminiscing about the past, her face a touch of interest as she surveyed Feng, who was not far away. The legend of the King of Plenty remains, and I am merely following in the footsteps of the Phantom Pony. To meet the King of Legends, Feng replied with a smile, his gaze as calm as flowing water. Feng was naturally filled with curiosity and interest in the wise and majestic Razorback before him. While Razorback's base stats alone were only 500, after fusing with his beloved Phantom or Falcon, its base stats soared to 680, rivaling even top-tier legendaries like Kyurem in their transformed form. Furthermore, unlike legendary Pokémon like Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, who shouldered heavy responsibilities, Razorback naturally intensified Feng's desire to capture it. Furthermore, Razorback possessed healing and bounty powers, a compassionate legendary Pokémon. It could be said to be a powerful legendary nurse combining attack and support. Most importantly, if Razorback could be convinced, Phantom and Falcon would inevitably join the team. A buy one get two free deal was a no-brainer. Furthermore, when Razorback rides Falcon or Phantom, Is it considered a 2-on-1 or a 1-on-1 fight? Lu Feng expressed his eagerness to know the answer. How could such a legendary Pokémon not stir his heart? The white horse Budcrest was silent for a moment, then gazed directly at Lu Feng with a shrewd gaze. A heavy, oppressive majesty emanated from him, like a tortured question piercing Lu Feng's soul. Cunning human, have you truly come to the Crown Temple solely to see me? I can clearly sense your desire for my power. Your so-called reverence is clearly not pure. Furthermore, you still carry the reins I once used. I doubt you're unintentionally chasing after the phantom pony. Even high-level legendaries can sense human thoughts through telepathy, let alone a king as ancient as Budcrest, possessing all-knowing knowledge and eyes full of wisdom. He easily sensed Lu Feng's heart. Beyond a touch of awe and shock, he felt a burning desire to forge a bond with him. The Bud Crown King didn't react too strongly to Lu Feng's thoughts. Over time, he'd seen so many such looks that he'd grown immune to them and remained calm. This was perhaps the most intuitive sentiment of many legendary Pokémon. Unless they were truly angered, or their inclinations were destructive, they would simply punish humans with a mild punishment before departing. Lu Feng's expression didn't falter. Instead, he looked at the Bud Crown King with neither servility nor arrogance, calmly expressing his most frank desires without a hint of fear. As expected of a wise king who sees the past, present, and future, as you can see, I do wish to invite you to join my team. The Bud Crown King remained silent, his eyes calm and deep, and he didn't speak any further. He looked up at the snow still falling on the mountain top, then back at the cold temple behind him. He then shifted his gaze to Lu Feng and spoke slowly. Human, you are honest and bold. I can sense the truth in your words, but, aren't you afraid of angering me? I know you harbor the power of other legendary gods, but today I will teach you what it means to revere a king. As the Rape Crown King finished speaking, his eyes suddenly sharpened, imbued with a uniquely domineering and rebellious air. He addressed Lu Feng coldly, release your power. I will teach you that a king cannot be insulted. His tone was filled with determination. Although he could sense that Lu Feng possessed more than one legendary being of similar power, he still challenged him to a fight, his kingly dominance and confidence fully revealed. Lu Feng was stunned for a moment at the Rape Crown King's words, then nodded with solemnity and respect. He surveyed the surrounding icy environment and released Kyurem. The next moment, the blanket of snow intensified the chill, snowflakes rustling and falling, a biting wind adding to the chill intention. The Rape Crown King, riding his blizzard horse, shattered the frozen air and attacked Lu Feng and Kyurem. The battle between the ancient King of Plenty and the Ice Dragon Kyurem was about to begin. Chapter 425, Advance, No Retreat. I am the King of Legends. Slurp. The Snowbreeze sensed a fighting spirit emanating from the Rapacrest, its chill rising within it. The icy chill emanating from its hooves instantly froze the ground. With a fierce neigh, it charged Kyurem. Instantly, a torrent of fine snow whistled in, carried by the whirlwind. The ancient King of Fertility, atop Snowbreeze, seemed to have revisited the days of galloping across the land of Galar, unleashing a powerful surge of strength. It's been ages since I've fought with all my might. I hope you can rekindle my passion and bring me back to the joy I've lost. As you wish. Lu Feng's eyes flickered as he gazed upon the charging Rapacrest. His voice was low and murmured, Kyurem, roar. Kyurem lowered his dragon head, a trace of caution in his eyes, before transforming into an unparalleled, fierce, and unleashing a domineering roar at the white horse, the Rapacrest. A brilliant spark flashed across his body, and his tail instantly transformed into divine. He emanated an intensely cold heat as he appeared before Lu Feng. Seeing this, the White Horse Flower Crown King's lips curled slightly in a smile, his eyes twinkling. Please teach me, Flower Crown King. Lu Feng, seemingly captivated by the surrounding atmosphere, gazed at the Flower Crown King with a surge of passion, unable to resist challenging him to a fight. The Flower Crown King didn't reply. He stared straight ahead, advancing like a knight, unwavering. In his hand, he congealed a spear of icy ice and hurled it fiercely at the flame-white Kyurem. A snow spear. The straight, icy spear streaked through the air, shimmering beneath a blizzard, emitting a deep chill. Its sharp edge threatened to pierce the flame-white Kyurem, sending him plummeting from mid-air. At the critical moment, the spear's edge was about to pierce the flame-white Kyurem. Lu Feng raised his head with a composed expression, his eyes fixed on the flame-white Kyurem in the sky. He calmly commanded, crossing flames. Flame-white Kyurem nodded slightly, and the turbine behind him erupted with powerful flames. Blazing sparks shot into the air, and the immense flame within him was instantly unleashed, following a path through the falling ice and snow, directly engulfing the snow spear. Crossing flames. Under the terrifying heat, the snow spear thrown by the White Horse Flower Crown King instantly transformed into a pool of snow water, dripping from the air to the ground. The remaining chilling air made Feng, standing not far away, rub his hands. The remaining flames continued to advance, hindered by the blizzard, and with difficulty appeared before the White Horse Flower Crown King. Before they could reach him, they were extinguished by the cold air from the snow horse's nose. The Rape Crown King looked at Flame White Kyurem with an unwavering expression. After a brief silence, a powerful, mystical wave suddenly condensed from his forehead, and terrifying supernatural powers spread out in front of the Crown Temple. Psychic shock. Simultaneously, the snow horse under the Rape Crown King's crotch also moved. The intense icy energy pent up in his body overflowed, quickly transforming into a massive icicle, fiercely slamming into Flame White Kyurem. Icicle crash. Feng couldn't help but smack his lips at the scene before him, his eyelids inevitably twitching. Ouch! The Rape Crown King and Snow Horse can actually attack together. This is completely unbelievable. No wonder he could still challenge me to a fight so calmly after sensing my legendary aura. So you're a cheater yourself, Feng sighed inwardly, muttering a few quick words to himself. He then glanced at Kyurem Flame, his expression losing its composure. He shouted, "Wide area destruction!" Kyurem Flame quickly swung its flaming tail, transforming into a resilient force to strike the falling icicle. Under the scorching flames, the icicle shattered, falling to the ground in a heap of shards. At that moment, the psychic impact of the Rape Crown King arrived. The overwhelming superpower swept through Kyurem Flame, leaving him dazed and momentarily frozen. The Snow Horse seized the opportunity and charged at him at swift speed, carrying a powerful impact that sent Kyurem flying. Kyurem Flame slid along the ground until it struck the icy rock above, where it slowly came to a stop, dissipating the immense force. The Snowbringer stopped dead in its tracks, gazing at the icy-covered Kyurem. It immediately activated Sword Dance, continuously strengthening its own strength. A moment later, Kyurem flew up from the ground, shaking off the fine snow that had stained its body. Its dragon eyes fixed fiercely on the White Horse Budcrest. Suddenly, an even more powerful aura erupted. Crossing its arms, it condensed a blue-red icy flame and hurled it forward. Extremely cold flames. The perfect fusion of freezing cold and scorching flames, a burning aura beneath the icy surface, quickly reached the White Horse Budcrest. The White Horse Budcrest's pupils narrowed slightly, a rare expression of solemnity on his face. Advance, no retreat. I am the King of Legends, no opponent can make me retreat. Not even a legendary dragon. Hearing the Rape Crown King's whisper, the Snow Horse grew even more excited. Unable to resist, it raised its front hooves and leaped into the air, unleashing a powerful burst of light, aimed at the frigid flame. Destructive beam. The Rape Crown King didn't hold back either. His powerful telekinesis erupted again, illuminating the icy landscape with a pale blue light. With him as the center, it surged into the void, quickly colliding with the frigid flame. Powerful psychic. Instantly, the combined attack of destructive beam and powerful psychic met the frigid flame. After a brief stalemate of seconds, a violent explosion suddenly erupted, reverberating around the Crown Temple, sending snow plummeting and the mountain swaying slightly. A massive blast of air swept the surrounding frost, snow, and ice crystals in all directions, forcing Feng to pull his clothes closer and shield himself with his hands to block this sudden attack. However, the changes unfolding around them failed to register the attention of the White Horse Flower Crown King and Flame White Kyurem, who were engaged in battle. Instead, as the ice and snow crumbled and fell, Flame White Kyurem and the White Horse Flower Crown King continued their fiercest battle. Their gazes fixed on each other, their faces filled with earnest respect, as if oblivious to the surroundings, completely absorbed in the evenly matched battle. At this moment, nothing else mattered except their respective opponents. Flame White Kyurem spurted out sporadic sparks, his dragon eyes blazing with fighting intent. As he attacked the White Horse Flower Crown King, he excitedly declared, "A worthy opponent. I will inflict the most glorious defeat." Kyurem, striving for ultimate power, had not encountered such a formidable foe in a long time. The evenly matched battle invigorated him, unleashing his full might. "My blood is burning within me." The White Horse Flower Crown King's blue eyes gleamed, his expression no longer solemn. With a touch of emotion, he raised his snow spear. A worthy opponent, let a single strike decide the outcome. Kyurem considered for a moment, then nodded silently. He knew White Bristle's proposal was the most appropriate for the situation. After all, a true battle between Pokémon at high legendary and above often wouldn't be over quickly. They weren't enemies with deep hatred, so a single strike made sense. Blizzard lightly stomped on the ice and snow, transforming into a streak of pure white light. With lightning speed, it charged, carrying Blizzardle with its snow spear. Using its momentum, Blizzardle threw its snow spear with all its might, hurling it forward alongside Blizzardle's razor-sharp icicles. Seeing this, Kyurem didn't hesitate. He first stirred up a fierce blizzard, then unleashed a massive, searing flame from his mouth, meeting White Bristle's attack. Bang! A huge explosion sounded, and a dazzling white light flashed, shaking the snow dust around and making all vision completely obscured, making it impossible to see the specific situation in the center of the battlefield. Feng frowned and waited, feeling a little anxious. Chapter 426, The Rejection of the Crowned King, Darkray's Anger. A few minutes passed. The snow slowly settled around them, and the blizzard subsided. Feng's previously obscured vision gradually cleared, revealing the battlefield in front of the Crown Temple. He watched Kyurem, who had retreated several steps and regained his normal form, standing on his feet, and the white horse, the Brocade King, panting heavily, and he breathed a sigh of relief. I recognize your strength, human. The white horse, the Brocade King's blue eyes gloomed as he stared directly at Kyurem and Feng, a solemn expression on his face. Feng's face lit up at the Brocade King's words, and he was about to say something. Braid King, human, I know what you're going to say, but before Feng could finish, the Brocade King interrupted him, turning sideways to face the Crown Temple. He gripped the reins tightly in his hand, sitting firmly on the back of the blizzard horse, and laughed softly. You are truly remarkable. You have made my life more wonderful than it has been in ages, but you should leave. With that, he gently raised the reins. Blizzard, with its head bowed, uttered two low hums as it bore the Rape Crown King towards the Crown Temple. Feng's expression froze as he watched the Rape Crown King's retreating form. He sighed silently and shook his head slightly. He knew full well that the Rape Crown King's gesture was a refusal of his invitation. After all, the expression on his face was clear, and how could a Rape Crown King, renowned for his perceptive powers, not know this? He watched as the Rape Crown King and Blizzard Horse retreated further and further, on the verge of disappearing from his sight. For some reason, Feng suddenly turned towards their backs and made one last attempt. Brown, I know you won't agree, but I'd like to try again. I'd like to invite you to join me on this journey, to challenge other powerful legends and the world's greatest trainers. Do I have the honor? As the Snowbringer, carrying Brawn, advanced, nearing the Crown Temple, it suddenly stopped, lowered its head and whinnied twice, turning back with a look of surprise. It was as if it hadn't expected Feng to be so persistent. Its master had already rejected Feng, silencing him, yet Feng still boldly extended the invitation. The snow near the Crown Temple seemed to have stopped, and the wind died down at that moment. Brawn didn't turn back. It held the reins tightly in its hands and remained silent, its back to Feng, preventing him from seeing the expression on Brawn's face. Feng waited nervously. Time ticked by, and the Rape Crown King still didn't turn back. Feng felt as if each second dragged on like an eternity, his heart filled with torment and impatience. Soon after, the Rape Crown King slowly turned around, a faint smile of interest on his face, and quietly regarded Feng. Human, my feeling was correct. You are truly bold and quite amusing, but I don't want to leave the Crown Snow Plains just yet. If we are destined to meet again, I will go with you to see everything you described. The Rape Crown King shook his head, then tugged on the reins, signaling the Snow Horse to continue. Feng's invitation was an experience the Rape Crown King had never experienced before. Ever since the fall of the Plenty Kingdom and the blanketing of ice and snow across the Crown Snow Plains, his heart, long dormant, quietly began to awaken. But this was only a single throbbing in his long life. As he had said, if Feng and he were destined to meet again in the future, the Rape Crown King would not refuse his invitation. At this moment, all he wanted was to stay in the Crown Treads, with his beloved Snowbringer and Ghostbringer. Rejected again, huh? A wry smile crossed Feng's face, but after hearing what Rape Crown said next, his eyebrows couldn't help but raise in surprise. Fate, we'll definitely meet again, Rape Crown? Feng muttered softly, gazing at the gradually closing and sealed Crown Temple. He then retrieved Kyurem and, with Charizard, left the Crown Temple, heading towards other areas of the Crown Treads. He had just suffered a setback at the hands of Rape Crown and desperately wanted to vent his anger. He was on the verge of finding the free-roaming chicken and the Galar Articuno, hoping to recoup his wounded heart. Meanwhile, as Lu Feng wandered through the Crown Treads, searching for the free-roaming chicken and the Galar Articuno, the time and space dimensions of the Sinnoh region underwent a drastic shift. Under the influence of Arceus, they completely intersected and overlapped. The two dimensions collided, instantly awakening Dialga and Palkia from their slumber. Dialga frowned, silently sensing the changes in the time dimension. Upon sensing Palkia's presence, he instantly became furious. He believed Palkia was taking advantage of his slumber to invade his territory. Dialga flew out of his slumber and rushed towards the intersection of the time and space dimensions. Palkia, startled by the sudden tremor, also became furious upon detecting Dialga's presence. He, too, believed Dialga had invaded his territory and flew towards the intersection. Soon, Dialga and Palkia arrived at the intersection of time and space simultaneously, their eyes red with hatred as they glared at each other, as if questioning why they had invaded their territory. Time passed. The argument between Dialga and Palkia escalated into violent confrontation. Both sides fought relentlessly, attacking each other without hesitation. Time around Dialga suddenly seemed to stand still. The blue diamond on his chest shone brightly. Under his control, time gradually twisted and erupted with powerful energy, launching towards Palkia. A tremendous roar shook time, and a dazzling blue light streaked through the void, like a pale blue beam attacking. Time roars. Palkia, witnessing this, immediately began to move. The lavender pearl on his arm flickered slightly. With his extraordinary spatial manipulation ability, Palkia easily tore a rift in space and slashed at Dialga with terrifying energy. The lavender light sliced through, tearing space apart inch by inch, filled with the aura of destruction and devastation. Subsonic Slash. In this moment, Time Roars versus Subsonic Slash. Two incredibly powerful attacks erupted through the dimensions of time and space, instantly causing energies to fluctuate and causing the two parallel worlds to converge towards reality. The battle between the two legendary Pokémon continued. After an unknown amount of time, the battle between Dialga and Palkia finally came to a head. Palkia, unable to dodge the terrifying roar of time, was forced to use his left arm to block the attack. The intense energy impact instantly cracked the purple orb on his arm, extinguishing its luster. Palkia cried out in pain, but despite the excruciating pain, he dodged Dialga's next attack. Escaping through the cracks in space-time and time, leaving the dimension and fleeing to Poplar Town in the Sinnoh region. To prevent Dialga from discovering his whereabouts, Palkia, before falling into a slumber to recover from his injuries, used his spatial manipulation to slowly drag the entire town of Poplar Town into his own dimension, sealing off all surrounding aura. Darkrai, who lived in the Pokémon courtyard in Poplar Town, noticed the changes in the space where Poplar Town was located. It seemed that he had discovered that Pokémon had invaded Poplar Town, and he could not help but shout angrily, "Get out!" Chapter 427, Baiang Town shrouded in crisis. In the Sinnoh region, at the ruins of Medina, the time-space sphere in the temple's basement vibrated violently, immediately drawing the attention of Hoenn and Coben. As they watched, the sphere representing Dialga's time dimension and the sphere representing Palkia's space dimension came into contact and overlapped. Simultaneously, the sphere representing the primordial space also vibrated, shortening the time until Arceus's awakening. The time-space anomaly has begun again. Hoenn frowned, her fair face filled with worry, and she paced back and forth anxiously. Coben pointed to the primordial space where Arceus was, watching the time advance. "Hoenn, we need to stop this time-space anomaly immediately. If this continues, Arceus will awaken sooner than expected." Hoenn nodded. She understood Coben's meaning, but the suddenness of the time-space anomaly caught them both off guard. A moment of silence followed. Hoenn looked up at Coben, signaling him to calm down for a moment. She then took a deep breath and said, "Coben, calm down. I'll ask Dialga about the cause of the space-time anomaly." Coben gradually quieted down, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and stood quietly beside Hoenn. Then, Hoenn clasped her hands together in prayer, her eyes tightly closed, and the power of transcendence within her body began to flow rapidly. "Transcend the laws of space-time, Dialga, please answer my call." The next moment, Hoenn's mind suddenly shifted to a completely new perspective. Within the dim, lightless space, where only pale blue energy spheres appeared, several pale purple energy spheres had appeared. From the aura emanating from these violet energy spheres, Hoenn knew with absolute certainty that they were the special energy that Pokia could control. However, she was puzzled by the sudden appearance of special energy, given that she was currently in Dialga's time dimension. Could it be that the time and space dimensions have come into contact? At this thought, Hoenn's face paled. Hoenn's superpowers came from Dialga, so she naturally understood what would happen when the time and space dimensions came into contact. Both Dialga and Pokia were legendary dragon gods fiercely protective of their territories. Once they believed their territory had been invaded, they would unleash a relentless attack, only quelling their rage by slaying the invader. I hope it's not what I think. Hoenn's eyes flashed with worry. Her consciousness began searching for Dialga within this time dimension. An unknown amount of time passed, perhaps just a few seconds or perhaps hours. A blue figure flashed before Hoenn's eyes, its body shimmering with a metallic sheen, striking a striking presence in the pitch-black space. Dialga roamed the space, radiating an unusual fury, its blood-red eyes searching every corner, as if searching for something. Xena's consciousness reached Dialga's side. Before she could ask, she caught sight of Dialga looking towards her. His eyes, no longer gentle and calm as usual, were now filled with a terrifying, violent aura. Xena swallowed hard, her throat tightening, as if unable to utter a single sound. A hint of panic took hold of her expression, a newfound panic. Dialga's intense anger, and the absence of Pokia, gave Xena an inexplicable sense of foreboding. Suppressing her fear, she met Dialga's crimson gaze, hesitantly asking, "Dialga, what exactly happened? Why is the time dimension colliding with this space dimension, and where is Pokia?" Roar! Dialga roared in anger at Xena's mention of Pokia. A powerful wave of sound swept through, instantly expelling Xena's consciousness to the other side of the time dimension. Cobbin fidgeted anxiously, staring at the time-space device, occasionally glancing back at Hoenn, his mind becoming increasingly uncertain. Just as he was unsure what to do, Hoenn suddenly opened her eyes, her legs trembling violently. She collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily, her clothes soaked with sweat. "Hoenn, what's wrong with you?" Cobbin hurried to Hoenn's side, gently helping her up, unable to resist asking. What exactly happened? Hoenn sat in a chair, trying to calm herself, then looked at Cobbin anxiously and replied, "The spatial and temporal dimensions have come into contact. This time-space anomaly was caused by the contact between the two dimensions. Dialga is furious in the temporal dimension, seemingly searching for Pokia's whereabouts, but I can't sense Pokia." Cobbin's pupils shrank slightly, his mouth inevitably widening in shock. How could this happen? Two non-contacting spaces suddenly collided. Sheena buried her head in her chest, her arms wrapped around her knees. She remained silent for a long moment, then suddenly raised her head, gazed at Cobbin, and made an immediate decision. "Cobbin, facing the enraged Dialga and the missing Pokia, the only thing we can do is inform Mr. Lu Feng and Sirona. You contact Mr. Lu Feng, and I'll contact Sirona." Cobbin nodded in agreement, clearly aware that the matter was beyond his ability to handle. The wisest option was what she suggested. "Hopefully, we'll be in time." She glanced at the still-changing chronometer and couldn't help but sigh. Suzerain Island, Sina Alliance headquarters. Sirona put down her phone and quickly walked to the laboratory at Alliance headquarters, which monitored energy reactions across the region. Without further explanation, she asked a researcher on duty, "Where's the energy reaction in Sina currently strongest?" The researcher, unaware of Sirona's intentions, saw her eagerness and didn't hesitate, quickly dispatching monitoring systems across the region to check. Soon, the relevant data was gathered at Alliance headquarters. The researcher reviewed the information, a look of horror on his face, and stammered, "The strongest energy reaction is at the intersection of the northwest of Black Gold City and the northeast of Zhuking City, and the energy there is still rising. If this trend continues, it will soon reach a critical point, disintegrating the area from the ground." "Where's that?" Sirona frowned, examining the map. She saw the name of a town marked on the map. It was Poplar Town. Chapter 428, Decisive Battle at the Tower of Time and Space. Sirona stood still, her beautiful eyes fixed on the words Poplar Town, and she took a deep breath. Then, she walked towards the Alliance's dedicated meeting room and summoned the 4 Sina kings, including Wusong, to inform them of the possible events surrounding Poplar Town. "Everyone, I've just received information about a violent energy reaction occurring around Poplar Town. The Guardian of the Ruins in Medina has also informed me of a space-time anomaly. I suspect a space-time rift may have opened around Poplar Town, potentially causing major unrest. Therefore, I hope you can assist me in evacuating the residents of Poplar Town." Upon hearing Sharona's words, the Sina King's faces suddenly turned bitter. Psycho King Wusong, in particular, had a look of deep sorrow. He remained silent for a moment, researching recent events related to Poplar Town, and then shook his head at Sharona. "Sharona, this might be a bit tricky. Is there a problem? Poplar Town is holding a Pokémon contest right now, and they've invited Hoenn champion Mikali. I'm sure you're aware of the popularity of the Pokémon contest and Mikali champion among Sina trainers. We simply can't evacuate quickly enough," Gaussen concluded, his head bowed, tugging at his hair in frustration. The other three Sina kings sat there, their eyes fixed on their noses, their minds focused, their mouths quivering. They stood there, silent, like mascots, awaiting Sharona and Gaussen's decision. "Can't we postpone the contest for now and let the trainers gathered in Poplar Town leave?" Sharona asked, her brows furrowed and her nose twitching slightly, her face filled with confusion. Gaussen sighed softly and unraveled the many scenarios that might arise for the residents of Poplar Town, leaving Sharona with a headache. A long pause passed. Sharona nodded gravely, her heart filled with complexities as she spoke. "I understand, but please issue a notice. Evacuate as many residents as possible. I'll handle the rest." With that, Sharona turned and left, releasing Garkemp and rushing towards Poplar Town. Wusong watched her retreat, then glanced at his three Buddhist colleagues. He couldn't help but touch his thinning hair, feeling it grow thinner, and suddenly a wave of grief and indignation filled him. He knew that although Sharona had delegated the evacuation to the four Celestial Kings, as the Sina League's long-time overworked leader, Wusong knew full well that this was his responsibility. After all, the Ground-type King, Kikuno, was already quite old and gradually relinquishing her power, awaiting the arrival of a new king to take her place in the rotation. Meanwhile, the Bug-type King, Liu, was only interested in playing with bugs and challenging Sharona. As for the Fire King, Day, he's currently busy trying to cheer Denji up or intensify his Pokémon training to seize the Sina champion title from Sharona. If he could rely on these three to manage things, Wusong felt the Sina League was on the verge of collapse. Especially since Sharona, the champion, would occasionally lead the charge, which made him feel a little powerless. Thinking of having to work overtime after just a few hours rest, Wusong couldn't help but worry about his few remaining hairs. He was silent for a moment, then released the Magic Wall Doll and said reluctantly, "Magic Wall Doll, please make me some coffee." Upon hearing this, the Magic Wall Doll's expression turned horrified and surprised, and it forcibly grabbed Wusong's hand to dissuade him, as if fearing he would suddenly die from the intense work in the League office. Elsewhere, in the Galar region, the Crown Snowfields, Lu Feng, who had just finished talking with Galar Zapdos and Galar Articuno, put down his phone expressionlessly. He stared at the two tail feathers in his hand, feeling a sense of dullness. Minutes earlier, Koban had contacted Lu Feng and told him everything the chronometer had revealed, hoping he could help find the missing Palkia and appease Dialga's wrath. Upon hearing Koban's account, Lu Feng's mind flashed back to a certain movie, and his expression instantly became incredibly complex and solemn. "Lu Feng, I'm so far away from Sina, and disaster can still strike as expected. Oh, maybe Ash showed up with Pikachu. That would be alright. After all, Ash and Pikachu's esoteric knowledge in the Pokémon world rivals that of a certain detective's elementary school student, the God of Death." At the same time, the system's voice echoed in Lu Feng's ears, issuing a deadly task as usual. "Ding. Congratulations to the host for receiving the legendary quest, Decisive Battle in the Tower of Time and Space. Quest deadline, before Dialga and Palkia destroy Poplar Town. Quest description, the time and space dimensions overlap. The battle between the enraged Dialga and Palkia gradually spreads to the peaceful Poplar Town. Please rush to Poplar Town to stop them from destroying the entire town. Quest reward: 1 Steel Essence, 1 Dragon Essence. Failure penalty: none." Looking at the quest information before him, Lu Feng sighed silently, then took out Reshiram and leaped onto his back, immediately accelerating Reshiram back to the Sinnoh region. Sinnoh region, Poplar Town. Having recently obtained the Water Vein Gym badge, Ozzy and his group were originally heading to the northern city of Cutting Edge to prepare for the 6th gym badge. But as they were returning to Zhuking City for a layover and about to head north, Xiaoguang happened to hear about a high-profile grand tournament being held in Beiyang Town, not far from Zhuking City, with Pokémon coordinator Mikali in attendance. After a brief discussion, the three decided to head to Beiyang Town first for Xiaoguang to participate in the grand tournament, then to Mutong Town, not far from Chifeng City, for the next grand tournament, before finally heading to Chifeng City to challenge the Chifeng Gym. This journey took about a day. Before Pokia arrived, Xiaozi and his companions finally reached Beiyang Town. However, due to some mistakes made by Xiaoguang, Xiaoguang and the others looked across the lake at Beiyang Town, not far away. Knowing that they still had a long way to go, they felt a little tired and dejected. Xiaoguang scratched his head sheepishly and apologized for taking the wrong path. Just as the group was at a loss as to what to do, a massive hot air balloon descended from the sky. A young woman named Alice appeared before them, earnestly inviting them aboard to take them to Beiyang Town. Xiaoguang, as always, was infatuated, unable to resist searching his fishing guidebook. He said, somewhat bewildered, "Are you Miss Alice from Beiyang Town? My name is Xiaoguang." "How rude, how could I have missed a beauty like you from my list of beauties? Please, go out with me." Alice's lips twitched at Xiaoguang's words. She gave a polite smile of surprise, then slipped her hand away from Xiaoguang's grasp without a trace, silently taking a few steps back. Xiaoguang was about to say something, but his mischievous frog, seemingly unable to bear it any longer, automatically emerged from its ball and gently delivered a drenched love attack, paralyzing him. My numbness fell off. Ash and Hickory watched the scene with unconcern, silently dragging Brock back with awkward smiles. Meanwhile, the hot air balloon slowly approached Poplar Town. Pikachu perched on Ash's shoulder, looking around anxiously, as if sensing some danger. A powerful energy surge whips up a violent gust of wind, causing the balloon to inevitably sway. Fortunately, the surge didn't last long, and the balloon quickly landed safely. Chapter 429 Darkrai appears. Then, led by Alice, Ash and his group toured Poplar Town and arrived at the Pokémon courtyard. Ash and the others gazed at the numerous Pokémon in the courtyard and released their own to play. During this time, a dispute erupted between Dawn's Pokemon and a small, sly creature in the courtyard over a peach berry, nearly leading to a major brawl. Fortunately, Alice blew the aura in time, calming the Pokémon. Seeing that all the Pokémon had calmed down, Dawn quickly lifted Pokemon from the ground and brought him to Alice. She apologized, "Miss Alice, I'm so sorry. This child has caused you so much trouble." Pokemon, like a deflated ball, drooped in Dawn's arms, sheepishly calling out, "Pogo." Alice smiled at Ash and the others, gently shaking her head. At this moment, an Alaga flew through the lush trees, arriving in the Pokémon courtyard in a few leaps. It then used the momentum to leap onto the platform where Alice and the others were standing. It looked at Alice anxiously, pointing in a certain direction within the courtyard, as if to tell her something. "Alaga, what happened?" Alice looked at it in confusion, her face filled with bewilderment. Ash and the other two also frowned at Alaga's expression, but they didn't speak directly. Instead, they quietly observed the exchange between Alice and Alaga. Seeing Alice approaching, Alaga leaped powerfully from the yellow brick floor, landing directly on the platform on the steps nearby. It turned and looked at Alice, motioning her to follow. Alice stared at Alito, a sudden feeling of foreboding rising within her. A hint of worry etched in her voice. She said, "Something seems to have happened." She then hurried off in the direction Alito had left, her golden hair trembling with her frantic pace, a striking sight. Ash and the others exchanged glances, their gazes revealing each other's thoughts. They immediately retrieved their Pokeballs, retrieved the Pokémon in the courtyard, and followed in Alito's wake. A moment later, guided by Alito, they arrived at a point within the Pokémon courtyard. They saw a cluster of stone pillars, several of which lay broken and scattered on the ground, a stark contrast to the courtyard's overall layout. "That's outrageous," Alice frowned, a hint of anger hidden in her eyes. She angrily exclaimed, "Who on earth would do such a thing, Darkrai?" At the same moment, a resonant, neutral voice emanated from a nearby tree-lined path, instantly drawing everyone's attention. Ash and the others instinctively looked in its direction. Baron Albert, dressed in aristocratic attire and sporting fiery red hair, approached. He regarded them with a frivolous expression, a false smile characteristic of an aristocrat, causing everyone to silently step back. Upon hearing Darkray's name again, Ash and the other two couldn't help but express a strange expression. They exchanged bewilderment, a strange thought forming in their minds. Could it be the Darkray that left Waterborne City? But the thought lingered for a moment before quickly being dismissed. After all, Poplar Town wasn't particularly close to Crescent Island in Watermay City, and Baron Albert's subsequent words confirmed that this Darkray had been in Poplar Town for quite some time. Just then, a sudden movement in the nearby brushwood set everyone on alert. Thinking it was Darkray, Baron Albert suddenly unleashed his liquor, pointing at the dense grass and launching it into an attack. Liquor. Destruction ray. Instantly, as Baron Albert finished his words, liquor erupted from its mouth with a powerful orange-yellow beam, exploding in the brushwood, blasting out a disheveled figure. Ah! What the hell is going on? Why is he suddenly attacking? Tonio, dressed in scientist attire, stumbled out, his clothes dusty from the destructive beam, and he appeared before the crowd, looking dusty. Tonio, Alice was stunned for a moment, then ran over with worry, her eyes full of concern. Baron Albert watched this scene with a touch of jealousy. He excitedly urged Alice not to be so nice to Tonio, claiming that Alice would be his future wife. Ozzy and the others trembled slightly as they watched Baron Albert's self-absorbed expression, his face gradually flushing, as if he were suppressing his emotions. For some reason, looking at this sleekly dressed Baron, they felt a certain indescribable feeling, as if they were witnessing a large-scale lick slipper, especially since his Pokémon was Lilac. Could this guy be licking me? Is he raising Lilac to learn how to please Miss Alice? Zyagang pondered. The more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed. If Lu Feng were here at this moment and saw Baron Albert's mysterious confidence, he would undoubtedly sigh silently, inwardly sighing, "Principal, you're not alone. The IV team has gained a new general." Upon hearing Baron Albert's words, Alice shook her head gently, making it clear that her heart belonged to Tonio and she would not be his wife. Baron Albert was unconcerned, believing Alice had impulsively sought an excuse to reject his proposal. Shortly after, the sky suddenly darkened, and a powerful energy surge caught Tonio's attention. A dark, invisible shadow passed beneath the shade of a tree in the courtyard. A burst of lavender energy emerged, and the half-height of a European-style stone pillar bearing flowers beneath the tree was severed and fell to the ground, alerting Alice and the others. The surrounding Pokémon, seemingly startled, adopted defensive postures, trembling and hiding. The next moment, Darkray's figure emerged, looming before them. He gradually solidified and said in a cold voice, "You're not allowed here. Get out." Ash and the others stared at Darkray in astonishment, somewhat confused by his meaning. They froze in their places, bewildered. "Darkray, sure enough, all this is your fault." Baron Albert glared at Darkray angrily. Due to the primacy effect, he immediately pinned all the blame for what had happened in Poplar Town over the past few days on Darkray. Suddenly, before anyone could react, a voice like the sound of a solitary orchid echoed from the courtyard, accompanied by the crisp sound of high heels tapping on the ground. It approached the crowd, causing everyone to turn their heads. No, Darkray didn't do this, he simply sensed the approaching danger and came out to stop it. Sharona and Mikali approached in a row, their faces grim. Champion Sharona, and Mr. Mikali, Zyagwang, watching the two approaching, was the first to recover from his surprise and cheered excitedly. Sharona and Mikali nodded to Zyagwang, then turned their attention to Darkray. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 430 Sarona's Request. Ash and Brock suddenly realized what was happening and quickly rushed to Sarona and Mikali. Looking at them with confusion and bewilderment, they asked, "Champion Sarona, Champion Mikali, you're saying this wasn't Darkray's doing?" Baron Albert, standing nearby, also came to his senses. Although he knew Sarona and Mikali were champions, he couldn't help but object, thinking back to what he had just witnessed. But, we all saw it with our own eyes. Darkray appeared when the flower bed shattered. Sarona and Mikali glanced at the incision, finding it perfectly smooth. Their hearts grew even heavier. "Sure enough, he's hiding in Poplar Town," Sarona sighed and whispered, leaving Ash, Baron Albert, and the others completely baffled. Having witnessed Pokia's power before, Sarona would never forget her experience on Crown Mountain. She was certain the missing Pokia was hiding somewhere in Poplar Town. Michaeli noticed the expression on Sirona's face, then recalled the news he had just heard on the road. He immediately looked at the others and said in a low yet elegant voice, "Everyone, I hope you can leave Poplar Town as soon as possible." "Ah, Mr. Michaeli, what do you mean?" Xiaoguang was extremely confused, and suddenly stunned. "Isn't Poplar Town holding the Pokémon contest? Why are you asking us to leave now?" Michaeli smiled bitterly at Xiaoguang's words. After a moment of careful consideration, he replied, "Due to some unexpected circumstances, the Poplar Town contest has been temporarily postponed. For your safety, please leave this place as soon as possible to avoid being affected by the impending danger." Xia Ozzy, Baron Albert, and the others were stunned at this. Everyone looked at each other in confusion, and the atmosphere in the courtyard became somewhat tense. Sharona turned to look at the still dazed crowd, coughed softly, and warned them again, "It's time to leave." Michaeli's words weren't alarmist. "There's indeed a great danger approaching Poplar Town. If not handled properly, the entire town could be annihilated. If possible, I hope you can help Michaeli and me spread this message to the other residents of the town, so they can evacuate as soon as possible to avoid the unbearable danger." What exactly is going on? Alice and Baron Albert saw the serious expressions on the two champions' faces and felt a sense of impending disaster. However, they suppressed their panic and tried to understand the reason. Taneo looked at the laptop in his hand, the energy peaks growing on the screen, and said thoughtfully, "This incident is related to the energy fluctuations in Poplar Town." "Right, energy fluctuations." Xia Ozzy and Xia Gang were puzzled at first, but then noticed a slight change in their expressions, as if they had grasped something. "Champion Sirona, Champion Michaeli, is this the crisis that's about to hit Poplar Town?" Xia Guang added, pleading, Please tell us the truth." Sirona and Michaeli exchanged a glance, a brief silence. Seeing the determination on their faces, they knew they wouldn't leave unless they spoke out. A moment later, Sharona sighed silently, looked up at the sky, and explained in a low voice, "According to the information I received, the energy around Poplar Town has changed drastically, which is related to the legendary Pokémon Palkia, and the traces left on this flower bed, and the anger emanating from Darkrai, also confirm my guess that Palkia should be in Poplar Town now." "So the crisis in Poplar Town comes from Palkia?" "That's not the case, Xia Ozzy. Palkia is just one of them. The other crisis may come from Dialga." When Xia Ozzy and the others heard this, they felt that their brains were not enough. They didn't know how Poplar Town was related to Dialga. Looking at the puzzled and curious crowd, Sirona paused for a moment before continuing her explanation. "The time dimension inhabited by Dialga and the spatial dimension inhabited by Palkia have collided, and a conflict has broken out between these two legendary Pokémon, both of whom possess a strong sense of territory. During the battle, Palkia, having fallen behind, sought to recover from his injuries and, through the rift in space and time, journeyed to Poplar Town. To avoid being discovered by Dialga, he enveloped Poplar Town with his own power. However, this situation won't last long. If Poplar Town remains under Palkia's control for too long, it could very well be assimilated, wiping out Sinnoh. We need to evacuate the residents as quickly as possible, and then try to get Palkia out of here." This, Alice covered her mouth in disbelief, as if she had just heard something unbelievable. After hearing Sirona's explanation, Taneo suddenly understood everything, and everything he had previously struggled to comprehend suddenly became clear. "So that's how it is. No wonder Poplar Town's energy peak has been rising recently. Now is not the time for that." Baron Albert's face sank to deep sullenness, and he couldn't help but growl. Poplar Town, his family's legacy, was utterly devastated. If it were to suffer a devastating blow, he would undoubtedly suffer the most. To prevent this from happening, Baron Albert looked at Sirona and Michaeli with pleading eyes, hoping they would expel Palkia and the possible appearance of Dialga. He took a deep breath, suppressing any remaining thoughts. His expression lost its previous frivolousness and cynicism, and he said solemnly, "Champions, I'll evacuate the residents right away. Poplar Town is in your hands." With that, Baron Albert left with a lick of his tongue. Brock, Alice, Antonio pondered for a few moments before running towards the gathering area of Poplar Town's residents to help Baron Albert evacuate them. As for Ash and Dawn, they stayed put, intending to follow Sirona and Michaeli to see if they could be of any further assistance. Sirona glanced at the departing figures of Alice and the others, then shifted her gaze to Darkrai, slowly approaching him. "Darkrai, I believe you heard what I just said." I hope you can help us protect Poplar Town. I believe you've lived there forever, and there must be something there that you cherish, so, please, this time." Darkray's blue eyes flickered slightly, their light fading and fading as he pondered Sirona's words. The surrounding black mist enveloped him, making the sunlight cast a lofty shadow. A moment later, he suddenly raised his head, gazed directly at Sirona with pure eyes, nodded gently, agreeing to Sirona's request, and flew out of the Pokémon courtyard. When Sirona saw Darkray's actions, she quickly said to Mickley, Ozzy and the others, "Let's catch up with Darkray, he should have discovered something." At the same time, Feng, who was rushing back to the Sinnoh region, was already very close to the Kanto region. Perhaps in another 5 or 6 hours, he would reach Sinnoh. Chapter 431, Giratina Motor Train, set sail. The sky was clear and the air was a pristine blue. Brilliant sunlight streamed down into the water, making the vast ocean seem like a cascade of pearls, a shimmering spectacle of water cannons. Numerous wild water-type Pokémon along the way, just emerging from the seabed, caught a fleeting glimpse of a white trail streaking across the sky. The overwhelming pressure of dragon types and the might of legendary Pokémons crushed the surface, instantly unsettling the entire sea. But Feng, perched on Reshiram's back, had no time to pay attention to the Pokémon. Instead, he gazed anxiously toward the Sinnoh region, his eyes filled with worry and uneasiness. "Reshiram, can you go a little faster?" He stroked Reshiram's soft back and gently leaned toward her, unable to suppress his emotions any longer. He urged her. A hint of helplessness flashed across Reshiram's bright blue dragon eyes. Although he could sense Feng's urgency, returning to Sinnoh was not something he could accomplish in a short time. After a brief silence, Reshiram let out a low growl and silently shook his head. Seeing Reshiram's shake of his head, Feng knew he wouldn't be able to return to Sinnoh anytime soon. He could only sigh, his face thick with disappointment. Suddenly, Feng's eyes caught sight of the sea, reflecting their figures like a mirror. As if grasping something, he fell into deep thought. It wasn't until Reshiram roared, causing the wild Pokémon in his path to retreat, that he gradually regained consciousness, his eyes brightening. "Reshiram, pause here for a moment." Reshiram was puzzled, but he obeyed Feng's command, hovering in midair, his feet planted on the sea surface, awaiting Feng's next command. Suddenly, Feng clasped his hands together in front of his chest, and the power of superpowers within him surged wildly, spreading from his body to the surroundings. "Overcome the laws of time and space, Giratina, please answer my call." Reshiram, resembling a white wolf, flashed a hint of surprise upon hearing Feng's words. Then, gazing out at the azure sea, a thoughtful expression crossed his face, as if a thought had suddenly occurred to him. Elsewhere, in the inverted world, Giratina, originally in his origin form, was patrolling his territory, dealing with the garbage that poured down from the real world, his face filled with dissatisfaction and anger. At this moment, a strangely familiar voice, accompanied by the power of Arceus, reached him from the real world, filling him with a sense of wonder. Giratina's 6 ghostly, ribbon-like wings trembled, its bloated body twitching like a snake's pupa. He muttered in astonishment, "That human from last time, you actually called me, that's really interesting." Giratina pondered for a moment, then directly used the authority granted by the inverted world to open a portal between the real world and the inverted world, quickly passing through it and arriving before Feng. "Human, we meet again." Giratina flew out of the portal formed on the sea surface. Its dragon eyes quietly surveyed Feng and Reshiram, and he couldn't help but ask a question. "Why did you call me here?" Feng breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing Giratina appear, his tense body gradually relaxing. He pondered for a moment, then looked up at Giratina and said earnestly, "Giratina, I need to return to Sinnoh as soon as possible. I'd appreciate your help." Feng knew that if he wanted to return to Sinnoh quickly, besides Hoopa's teleportation abilities, only Giratina, who controlled the reverse world and could freely enter and exit the real world, could do it. Unfortunately, Feng didn't know Hoopa at the moment, so he could only pin his hopes on Giratina. While the Giratina high-speed train's return speed was still somewhat inferior to Hoopa's anywhere or direct access, it was far superior to the arduous long-distance flight with Reshiram. "Reshiram, then I'll go." Giratina was silent. He hadn't expected Feng's first call to him to become his driver, which immediately displeased the arrogant and surly Giratina. But before he could say anything, Feng, noticing his expression, immediately added, "Giratina, I want to return to Sinnoh as soon as possible, and it's actually to help you relieve your work pressure." Giratina was speechless at this, his fierce dragon eyes fixed on Lu Feng, as if trying to understand how he could say such shameless things. "Giratina, not only do you want me to be a delivery driver, but you act like you're doing it for my own good? Thank you so much." Instantly, the atmosphere on the sea grew subdued, becoming deathly still and silent. Seeing Giratina about to explode, Lu Feng hurriedly explained, "I've received word from the Guardians of Medina that Dialga and Pokia will soon appear in the real world and engage in a fierce battle. Giratina, as legendary dragon gods born together, I believe you understand the profound impact a battle between Dialga and Pokia will have on the Upside Down. Please help me return to Sinnoh and stop this senseless battle." Giratina's expression shifted at Lu Feng's words. As the Lord of the Upside Down, he naturally understood the impact a battle between legendary Pokémon would have on the Upside Down. The recent battle between Regigigas and Kyurem had on the Upside Down, causing Giratina considerable trouble in clearing up the situation. Not to mention Dialga and Pokia, legendary Pokémon that controlled space and time. If it weren't for the need to reverse the world's stability, he would have been completely bored to save those fools, Dialga and Pokia, during the last universe creation incident at Mount Xiangun. The thought of these two foolish brothers, who had just calmed down, about to start fighting again, instantly ignited Giratina's rage. After carefully observing that Pokia had indeed arrived in the real world from the space dimension, as Lu Feng had claimed, and that the time rift near Poplar Town was still expanding, which would likely attract Dialga's attention, Giratina knew that Lu Feng was not deceiving him. After a moment of deep thought, Giratina's eyes gradually softened, and he nodded gently to Lu Feng. "Human, thank you for your reminder. Your request is granted." Giratina finished speaking, and its massive body gradually approached Reshiram. Then, using its psychic power, it launched Lu Feng into the air, landing him safely on its back. Seeing this, Lu Feng breathed a sigh of relief and quickly retrieved his master ball. "Giratina, I think we need to speed up," Lu Feng said in a low voice. "I understand," Giratina said in a deep voice, taking Lu Feng back to the reverse world and flying towards the nearest exit to Beiyang Town. Chapter 432 Darkrai vs Pokia. At the same time, just as Lu Feng entered the reversed world, in the Sinnoh region, in Beiyang Town, Darkrai floated in midair, his blue eyes fixed on the summit of the space-time tower. A dark, turbid mist filled the air, and the rags on his shoulders rustled in the breeze. "Get out, you're not welcome here." Sirona, Mikali, and the others followed Darkrai's lead, quickly arriving at the tower. They heard Darkrai roaring in a furious and agitated tone. Seeing this, Sirona and Mikali gazed at the tower with a thoughtful expression. "Could Pokia be hiding here?" "I think so. Only Pokia should be able to make Darkrai so angry." Ash and Hickory looked at the towers of time and space in front of them, the long and thin spiral staircases winding outside the two towers, the huge pendulum in the Tower of Time, and the orbiting sphere in the Tower of Sky, and couldn't help but exclaimed, "How spectacular! But is Pokia really here?" Hikaru looked around and didn't find any trace of Pokia. He couldn't help but ask the doubts in his heart. "This doesn't look like a place to hide at all." Hearing this, Mikali turned to look at Xia Guang, then smiled gracefully and explained, "Legend has it that Pokémon possess abilities that ordinary Pokémon don't possess. Perhaps he's watching us from here right now." Mikali is right. As the god of space, Pokia must be hiding in a different dimension, invisible to us. A terrifying battle might break out here soon. "Xia Ozzy, you two should retreat." Sharona tucked her hair back, her eyes fixed on the Tower of Time and Space. Her black windbreaker fluttered in the wind, giving her an indescribably heroic presence. At that moment, Darkrai suddenly extended his black claw-like hand, condensing a dark purple energy ball that radiated an eerie and ominous energy. He flung it directly towards the center of the Tower of Time and Space. The dark purple energy ball streaked across the sky. Shortly after entering the tower's summit, it seemed to encounter a formidable energy barrier and instantly transformed into a pitch-black black hole, exploding. Dark hole. But the energy erupting from the dark hole didn't last long, quickly counteracted by a purplish force. The space above seemed to warp, instantly swallowing up the remaining energy from the dark hole. Perhaps under the influence of a powerful external force, a different dimension suddenly emerged at the center of the Tower of Space and Time. Pokia, eyes closed and deep in sleep, suddenly appeared before Sharona, Satoshi, and the others. Divine. Majestic. Powerful. Noble. No words could describe the feelings of Satoshi and Dawn. Only the shock that involuntarily crossed their faces could capture their emotions at that moment. Is this Palkia? Satoshi gazed at the sleeping Palkia, his eyes flickering slightly, and he swallowed hard. So powerful. Dawn remained silent, but her trembling body betrayed her inner shock. It's unimaginable, Mikali muttered in awe, comparing Palkia to Hoenn's Rayquaza. Her emotions grew intensely restless. Sharona remained calm. Having met Palkia before, her emotions were relatively unaffected. Gazing at the sleeping Palkia, Sharona noticed the pearl on his left arm was dull and cracked, lacking the luster of the one on his right. So Palkia's appearance in Poplar Town is actually to recuperate, Sharona realized, instantly understanding why Palkia had come to the real world. At that moment, Darkrai, who had been paused, suddenly moved, rapidly approaching Palkia. A terrifying aura filled with malevolence emanated from his body, instantly enveloping him. A wave of evil. Get out! With an angry roar, the wave of evil's terrifying attack descended, quickly impacting Palkia, causing a series of explosions on his body. Boom! 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 The tremendous roar and the throbbing pain instantly awakened the slumbering Palkia, who unleashed a mighty and terrifying roar. The resounding dragon roar echoed throughout Poplar Town, causing the faces of countless residents and trainers who hadn't yet left to turn pale, their eyes inevitably filled with fear and panic. Baron Albert, Alice, and the others who were still evacuating the people, their hopes shattered upon hearing the resounding roar, their faces suddenly grim. However, with no other options available, they could only silently pray for Sharona and the others' success, and then continue to lead the remaining residents towards safety. Tonio stared blankly at Palkia in the sky, feeling as if he had seen this scene somewhere before. After struggling to recall it, he finally remembered something important. He stopped running and turned to run back to his laboratory, leaving Baron Albert and Alice baffled. Tonio, Alice placed her hands on her chest, her face filled with worry as she pondered for a few seconds before chasing after him. Baron Albert, upon witnessing this, felt a wave of distress. He felt as if a green light flashed overhead, and his expression darkened. However, upon seeing the townspeople behind him, he resisted the urge to follow Alice. With a deep sigh, Baron Albert continued to guide the townspeople to safety. In front of the space-time tower, Palkia, having awakened, noticed Darkrai nearby and sensed a significant threat. However, recalling the events of the past few days, his rage surged like a volcanic eruption. The lavender pearl on his right arm shone, and powerful energy gathered in his hand. With a will to distort space and sever everything, he slashed directly at Darkrai. Subvoid slash. Darkrai's eyes gleamed as he watched the incoming purple arc tear through space at a swift pace, poised to descend upon him. He suddenly hurled several pitch-black shadow balls, hurling them in the direction of the sub-aperture slash. Shadow balls. In an instant, a dazzling light illuminated the sky, and a terrifying wave of energy whipped up a massive gust of air, propelling Darkrai and Palkia forward. Sharona and the others, watching from afar on the ground, also retreated a distance, caught on the aftermath of the battle. As the energy gradually dissipated, Palkia and Darkrai each took their own side, gazing at each other with indifferent expressions. A brief standoff ensued. Sharona noticed that the surrounding buildings had begun to melt away in the recent collision. Knowing that the battle could not continue in Poplar Town any longer, she took a deep breath and unleashed a land cloud and a tornado. Land cloud, tornado, I hope you can help Darkrai and get Palkia out of Poplar Town as soon as possible. Land cloud and tornado crossed their arms, glanced up at the sky, nodded silently, and flew toward Darkrai. Elsewhere, in the pitch-black time dimension, Dialga searched aimlessly for Palkia, his red eyes scanning the surrounding space, but he found no trace of Palkia and was forced to stop. Suddenly, somewhere at the intersection of the time dimension and the real world, a familiar presence reached Dialga, immediately catching his attention. With a roar, he turned his body and rushed into the nearby ripple channel, disappearing into the time dimension in an instant. Chapter 433, Dialga appears, Poplar Town in danger. At the same time, as Palkia and Darkrai battled, the weather around Poplar Town shifted, plunging into pitch-black darkness. Thunder streaked across the sky, accompanied by deafening explosions. Poplar Town instantly became an isolated island, enveloped by the dimensional force emanating from Palkia. It threatened to be dragged into the rift between time and space, creating a closed space. But before this could happen, another wave of energy appeared in the sky, and an enraged Dialga flew out, attacking Palkia directly. Palkia, sensing Dialga's threat, abandoned his fight with Darkrai, the Earth Cloud, and the Tornado, quickly dodging Dialga's attacks and launching a timely counterattack. The twin space-time dragons engaged in a high-speed chase across Poplar Town, unleashing terrifying skills and attacks that swept through numerous buildings, instantly reducing them to ashes. The remaining buildings were assimilated into the pale purple energy. At that moment, Poplar Town was affected by the power of the twin dragons of time and space. The surrounding energy fluctuations rapidly increased, quickly reaching a new peak. While it couldn't yet rival the energy reaction erupting from Mount Skycrown, if it continued for a while longer, the entire town would be annihilated in the rift between time and space, and everyone still within would perish. Darkrai, realizing the urgency of the situation, quickly flew towards Dialga and Palkia, attempting to drive them away. Earthcloud and Tornado supported Darkrai's attack. In that instant, the entire town of Poplar Town became a battlefield for legendary Pokémon, plunging it into an extremely precarious situation. Meanwhile, Tonio returned to his lab, rummaging through the items on his desk, his face clearly filled with anxiety. The scene of Dialga, Palkia, Darkrai, and other Pokémon battling on the monitor intensified his anxiety, and the pressure weighed heavily on him like a mountain. Alice, who had followed him here, looked at the anxious Tonio and couldn't help but ask, "Tonio, are you looking for something? I can help you." Tonio paused for a moment, sweat dripping down his cheeks. "I need to find a notebook with an old cover. It's something Gaudi left behind. I saw photos in it similar to today's. Maybe there's a solution to the crisis in Poplar Town." Alice was lost in thought, then nodded seriously. "I understand. I'll help you find it." Then, the two of them searched together for about 5 minutes before finally finding the old diary amidst a pile of debris. Tonio looked at the notebook with joy, and regardless of the dust on it, he flipped open the notebook without a trace and quickly found the information he was looking for. "I found it. In Gaudi's time, he had a similar nightmare due to Darkrai. To prevent it from becoming a reality, Gaudi built the space-time tower. Playing Orion through it can restore everything to its original state." "But what is Orion?" Tonio frowned, looking at the mention of Orion in the notes, a headache and confusion suddenly appearing on his face. Alice's face was filled with surprise when she heard Tonio's words. She couldn't help but cover her mouth with her hand and whispered, "Orion is a song my grandmother taught me, but I alone can't play Orion to calm Dialga and the others' wrath." Tonio frowned at this, and then suddenly looked up after a thought. Since Gaudi could foresee the construction of the Tower of Time and Space, he must have left behind a solution. Perhaps he left behind Orasian's music disc. "Alice, we need to find the music disc now." Alice nodded, her face serious. "I understand." Inside the reverse world, Feng stared ahead, oblivious to the bizarre spectacle of the entire world's reflections. Giratina soared through the air, occasionally flipping and leaping, passing from one inverted flatland to another, nearing the exit of Poplar Town. Suddenly, a dark, indelible substance began to rise from the exit of Poplar Town in the reverse world, like an extremely thick black fog, filling the reverse world. This substance was created by the battle between legendary Pokémon in the real world, which affected the reverse world. Giratina abhorred this kind of substance, seemingly believing that its presence would pollute the reverse world he controlled and increase his workload. "Roar!" He couldn't help but roar in anger, his expression turning icy for a moment. Giratina could already sense the battle between Dialga and Palkia had begun, causing the strongest impact on their own reverse world. The impact was even greater than any previous legendary battles. "Two fools," Giratina grumbled, losing his earlier composure. Feng remained silent. Through a nearby image, he spotted Sharona, Satoshi, and the others lingering in Poplar Town, and a heavy weight suddenly settled over him. With Giratina's help, Feng quickly reached the entrance to Poplar Town in the reverse world and burst through with Giratina. Gazing at Poplar Town, shrouded in the power of time and space and shrouded in a black mist, Giratina launched a daring attack, attempting to break into Poplar Town and stop Dialga and Palkia. His body slid into the shadows, charging at the barrier ahead at incredible speed. A powerful burst of ghostly energy slammed into the space-time barrier. Shadow sneak attack. But what infuriated Giratina was that, despite his attack, Poplar Town's space-time barrier remained unscathed. Aside from a faint ripple, there wasn't even a trace of a crack. "Giratina, even your power can't break through this barrier," Feng muttered in disbelief as he watched Giratina's defeat. Although Giratina felt a little annoyed by Lu Feng's doubts, he suppressed his anger and stared at the space-time barrier not far in front of him with a complicated expression. This place has left the real world and entered the space-time rift. Furthermore, with the influence of those two idiots, it's difficult for me to break through with my own strength. Lu Feng nodded in sudden realization, recalling the scene in the Giratina movie where Giratina was unable to escape the reversed world, and he couldn't help but sigh. After a moment's contemplation, Lu Feng unleashed 3 Master Balls, releasing Groudon, Reshiram, and Kyurem. He then pointed to the black mist barrier enveloping Poplar Town. "Everyone, I'm counting on you." Groudon, Kyurem, and Reshiram nodded gently, then unleashed their most powerful moves, striking the same impact point fiercely. Cliff Sword, Frozen World, Crossfire. 3 powerful signature moves descended, and the black mist-shrouded Poplar Town barrier trembled violently, cracking visibly. However, under the influence of the power of time and space, it quickly healed. Lu Feng stared at the barrier before him, his eyes flashing with surprise. He stood there, dazed, unable to recover for a long time. Chapter 434 arrived in time. A few minutes later, Lu Feng gradually regained consciousness, prompted by Giratina's reminder. He gazed at the unbreakable space-time barrier, lost in thought. Then, he slowly removed the Arceus tablet from his backpack. With a surge of superpowers, the space-time barrier underwent a dramatic shift, a ripple gradually appearing. Lu Feng breathed a sigh of relief as he observed this scene. Giratina's dragon eyes fixed on Dialga and Palkia in Poplar Town. Sensing the beginnings of the reverse world's cracks, he roared in frustration, then addressed Lu Feng. "Human, what happens next is up to you. Thanks to these 2 idiots, the reverse world has cracked. I must return to the reverse world and restore it." Lu Feng nodded, watched Giratina disappear, then turned and walked into the passage with Kyurem. Inside Poplar Town, the battle between Dialga and Palkia continued. Darkrai, Landcloud, and Tornado charged forward, but before they could even reach the enemy, the enraged Dialga slammed them to the ground. Taking advantage of Darkrai and the other 3 Pokémon's distraction, Palkia darted away from Dialga, passing over numerous houses. He was on the verge of escaping Dialga's pursuit and escaping the sealed-off Poplar Town back into his own dimension. At the critical moment, Dialga noticed Palkia's movements, instantly gathering his steel energy into his mouth and firing directly at Palkia. Cannon Beam. The cannon beam flashed with an orange-yellow glow, approaching the speed of light, striking Palkia directly before he could react. Thick smoke filled the air, obscuring all vision. Under the powerful impact, Palkia slammed heavily into the square in front of the space-time tower, his body dragging a long distance across the ground before slowly coming to a stop. Roar! Palkia roared in pain, his face awash with agony. Dialga watched Palkia fall from the sky after being knocked down. He gazed at Palkia, shrouded in smoke and dust, his head held high, gleaming with a metallic sheen, and roared fiercely at the sky. Instantly, a powerful surge of energy emanated from Dialga's body, spreading in all directions and accelerating the distortion of time in Poplar Town. The massive clock atop the space-time tower spun at a breakneck speed, seemingly unbalanced and unable to stop. In that instant, the speed of time in Poplar Town drastically shifted from that outside, accelerating. Sharona and the others, shaken by the surge of power, nearly lost their balance, but they managed to avoid falling. As the dust cleared ahead, Palkia reappeared. He slowly rose from the ground, dragging his scarred body across from him. He stared at Dialga, standing opposite him, a look of solemnity and anger on his face. Dialga let out a low growl, pausing his other movements. His eyes met Palkia's, and a brief moment of calm descended. Seeing this, Xiaogang swallowed hard, as if his throat was being strangled. He spoke with some difficulty. "Is this the Pokémon known as God?" And 2 of them appeared at once. Mikali and the others remained silent, but the sweat dripping down their faces betrayed their inner turmoil. At that moment, Dialga and Palkia's bodies trembled slightly, and the 2 legendary Pokémon moved simultaneously. Dialga's steel-type power gathered once more, suddenly converging into a single point from his mouth and bursting out towards Palkia, quickly breaking through the air's resistance. Cannon Beam. Palkia noticed Dialga's movements and didn't sit still. Instead, he concentrated the purple wave guide within his body into his hands, harnessing the power of his rotation and hurling it directly towards Dialga. Wave Missile. In an instant, the cannon beam and the wave missile locked in midair for a few seconds before suddenly exploding with a roar. Thick smoke billowed, forcing everyone to shield their noses from the pungent odor. Darkrai, Landcloud, and Tornado, the three legendary Pokémon, quietly returned to the Space-Time Tower Plaza. Watching the battle between Dialga and Palkia, they paused in contemplation before watching from afar. A minute later, before the smoke from the Space-Time Tower Plaza had completely dissipated, Palkia suddenly burst through the dust, curling up and soaring into the sky. Dialga followed closely behind, blasting the air with a powerful cannon beam. Facing the onslaught of Dialga, the severely injured Palkia chose to retreat, constantly distanced himself from Dialga and dodging the soaring cannon beams. Time ticked by. Gradually recovering his breath, Palkia's eyes narrowed, and he condensed a multitude of purple wave missiles in his hands, launching a counterattack against the relentless Dialga. Countless energies erupted from the sky, poised to strike down Sirona and the others. Nearby, Darkrai and Tornado sprang into action, unleashing powerful moves to completely obliterate the overwhelming energy. Then, three legendary Pokémon soared into the air, each using their signature moves to attack the two legendary dragons, attempting to drive them from Poplar Town. Darkrai's eyes were cold and indifferent, and he roared in a deep voice. "Get out of here!" Dialga noticed Darkrai and the other Pokémon repeatedly sabotaging his operations. His fury surged like a wildfire, and he turned, unleashing his signature move and charging at Darkrai. A pale blue ball of light struck him. Darkrai took a deep breath and used his Dark Hole move, enveloping himself in a world of darkness, narrowly negating the power of Time's roar. As for Earthcloud and Tornado, they were not so lucky. The powerful blast sent them careening backward, crashing to the ground in a parabolic arc. Meanwhile, Palkia's wave missiles approached, and Dialga soared into the air. The wave missiles, unstoppable, were about to strike the space-time tower, destroying it completely. Darkrai's pupils widened, and he transformed into a dark beam of light, appearing before the tower. He used his body to block the wave missiles, sparing the tower from destruction. Darkrai grunted after forcibly withstanding the devastating impact of the wave missile, his body slowly plummeting to the ground, his face etched with pain. Seeing this, the gloom on Sharona's and the others' faces deepened, and they hurried towards Darkrai. The battle between Dialga and Palkia continued, violent energy erupting from the sky, much of it cascading towards the fleeing group. Pikachu leaped from Satoshi's shoulder at the perfect moment, hovering briefly before unleashing a powerful 100,000-volt surge, sweeping away all nearby energy. Sharona's Garchomp and Mikili's Milotic also sprang into action, unleashing terrifyingly powerful attacks to halt the spread of the remaining energy. Satoshi and the others breathed a sigh of relief. But before they could relax for long, Palkia's power ripped the buildings of Poplar Town apart. And the ground where Sharona and the others stood threatened to be engulfed in lavender energy. In a flash of lightning, a powerful icy blue light appeared, freezing everything in an instant and gradually slowing the ground's melting. Flame-white Kyurem flapped its wings, carrying the dusty Lufeng to the scene just in time. Chapter 435 Memories are pearls, friendship is diamonds. Everyone's hearts pounded as they watched Lufeng suddenly appear, and the ice frozen in time to stop the melting. A few seconds later, Lufeng turned his head, looked at Sharona and the others, and nodded. "Are you all okay?" Xia Guang and Xia Ozzy finally woke up, their legs trembling slightly. They felt beads of sweat trickling down their cheeks, and they quickly wiped them away, their faces still trembling. "We're saved. That was really dangerous just now." Pikapi, Sharona and Mikili breathed a sigh of relief, their frowns softening slightly upon seeing Lufeng appear. Mikili even quipped, "Mr. Lufeng, you're still as trustworthy as ever." Upon hearing this, Xia Ozzy and Pikachu recalled their past experiences, most of which had been resolved thanks to Lufeng's efforts. They nodded in agreement. Though Sirona remained silent, the fiery flames dancing in her gray-black eyes and the smile that curled her lips spoke volumes about her current state of mind. Lufeng rubbed his nose, a fleeting blush on his face. Even though he considered himself thick-skinned, he couldn't help but be surprised at Mikili's public outbursts. He glanced carefully at everyone, confirming they were all unharmed, then turned his gaze to Darkrai, who stood nearby. Gazing at the legendary Pokémon, whose aura was a bit weak, its body covered in scars of varying sizes, Lufeng sighed softly, his eyes filled with emotion and admiration. He could clearly sense that Darkrai wasn't in the best of health, yet he exuded an incredible strength of will. A brilliant glint shone from his blue eyes. Perhaps this was the reason why he could rival even the greatest gods. Darkrai rose from the ground, thrusting into the battle between Dialga and Palkia. He manipulated his materialized nightmare powers, repeatedly knocking the two legendary dragons away. With strength comparable to that of a high legend and an immensely tenacious willpower, Darkray's power instantly approached that of a top legend. After a brief pause, Dialga and Palkia attacked Darkrai, attempting to strangle this relentless troublemaker before continuing their battle. Two dazzling beams of light, pale blue and lavender, streaked across the heavens, instantly stunning the utterly darkened Bayang town, shrouded in the dimensional space. Like a collision between Mars and Earth, they slammed into Darkrai. Facing these two devastating attacks, Darkray's eyes gleamed, and he shouted in a deep voice, "Get out, I won't allow you to destroy this." Shortly after his words fell, a powerful nightmare power emerged, completely enveloping him. A black mist continuously emanated from him, resisting the attacks from Dialga and Palkia. Boom! Boom! A terrifying energy explosion roared, and billowing black smoke filled the air, engulfing Darkrai, who was caught between Dialga and Palkia, making it impossible to see clearly. "Darkrai!" Ash exclaimed in shock as he gazed at the battlefield above, seeing Darkrai engulfed in the black mist. His eyes trembled slightly, filled with worry and uneasiness. A moment later, the black smoke surrounding the space-time tower dissipated, and Darkrai reappeared, his arms clasped over his chest, his head protruding from his neck, his expression twisted in agony, as he plummeted from midair. Upon seeing this, Feng and the others hurried towards where Darkrai had fallen. At Feng's signal, flame-white Kyurem charged towards Dialga and Palkia, violently joining their battle. A few minutes later, they arrived before Darkrai. Xiao Guang, observing Darkray's miserable appearance, still struggling to soar into the sky, couldn't help but cover her mouth with her hand, her eyes misting as she spoke with a hint of bitterness. "Why is he fighting so desperately? Perhaps because he has something to protect in this town." Sharona lowered her eyes and lowered her voice, her heart choking. Feng, recalling the plot of the movie, naturally understood why Darkrai was fighting so desperately. "Memories are pearls, friendship is diamonds," Feng said. "He's fighting for what he cherishes. There are reasons in Poplar Town that compel him to fight, but if this continues, he'll die," Xiao Guang said, overcome with emotion, her voice choking. Upon hearing Hikaru's words, Ash quickly restrained Darkrai with his hands, preventing him from re-entering the battle between the Chrono Dragons and Kyurem. After all, Darkrai was practically at the end of his rope. If it weren't for his incredible willpower, he would have collapsed long ago. "Darkrai, stop. You've done enough." Darkray's blue eyes froze at this. He could sense his current state was devastating. The best course of action was to observe the battle between Dialga and Palkia, as Ash had suggested, with aloof eyes. But when he thought of the warmth Alicia had brought him that afternoon, and the precious memories that had been etched throughout the town, Darkrai could not bear to watch it all being destroyed, to burn everything that had been there. The next moment, Darkray's eyes hardened, his expression returning to its cold, indifferent tone, and he forcefully pushed Ash away. "Go away. Don't get in my way." Xiaozi was caught off guard and was suddenly shoved to the ground. The pain in his butt made him gasp, and he bounced back like a spring. Seeing Xiaozi's expression, Darkray's face, once stoic, flashed with apology. He felt a flicker of regret for his actions, but at the roar of explosions overhead, he suppressed all his emotions. He was about to float into the air, desperately trying to stop the fight, when Feng suddenly appeared before him, his arms shimmering with blue wave power, stopping Darkrai. "Darkrai, I think Xiaozi is right. You should stay." Feng smiled faintly, his wave power accumulating within him. "Are you going to get in my way too?" Darkrai was silent for a moment, then looked at Feng with rage, unable to resist demanding. Feng shook his head, then released Reshiram, signaling him to fly into the sky to help Kyurem. Upon hearing this, Reshiram's bright blue dragon eyes glanced at the three battles above, a fleeting expression of astonishment and surprise. He hadn't expected Dialga and Palkia to be fighting again. Recalling the incident at Mount Skycrown, Reshiram wondered suspiciously, wasn't the beating he took last time enough? He had recovered so quickly. After a few seconds of contemplation, Reshiram flapped his white wings, soaring into the sky like a beam of white light. Darkrai was stunned by this sight. "Darkrai, leave the rest to us." Feng paused, then looked at Darkrai seriously and said, "Your task now is to heal your injuries." Without even considering Darkray's response, Feng used Viridian's power to heal him. Under Viridian's healing power, Darkrai, gradually recovering, looked at Lu Feng with a complicated expression, silently cooperating with his treatment. Chapter 436, The Wave Sealing Technique reappears. 10 more minutes passed. Seeing Darkrai's injuries gradually under control, Lu Feng, feeling the fatigue that came with exhaustion, slowly withdrew his hand from Darkrai's body and reclaimed the power of Viridian. He handed Darkrai to Xiaozi and the others, then shifted his gaze to the inky sky. Dark clouds now covered the sky, and thunder and lightning flashed in a crisscross pattern. The battle between Dialga and Palkia continued, but thanks to the intervention of Kyurem and Reshiram, the situation was gradually under control. Lu Feng gazed at the 4 legendary dragon gods engaged in a chaotic battle, frowning and lost in thought. He knew full well that, according to the original historical trajectory, to restore the situation to its original state, he would need to use the Tower of Time to play Eurasian and calm Dialga and Palkia. But there was a more important issue at hand. Dialga and Palkia had to be subdued first. Their battle had caused the space-time energy within Poplar Town to become abnormally active. If this situation remains unchecked, the invading energy from the extra-dimensional dimension could completely erode and disintegrate Poplar Town before the Eurasian even begins. Even though Flame White Kyurem used his ultimate freezing power to completely freeze the ground and buildings of Poplar Town, slowing the rate at which the extra-dimensional energy was eroding the town, this was ultimately only a temporary solution. After a moment of silent contemplation, Lu Feng was about to speak when he saw 2 figures appear in the distance. Alice and Tonio trotted toward the group. From the constant running, they seemed to be struggling for breath, their chests heaving violently. Upon seeing Sharona and the others, Alice and Tonio panted heavily for a moment, hunched over, their hands resting on their knees, their expressions of exhaustion. Then, as they recovered, their breathing evened out. Tonio retrieved Gaudi's diary from the laboratory, opened her page, and pointed to the information written there. "Everyone, I need your help. Alice and I have found a way to calm Dialga and Palkia's wrath and restore Poplar Town to its original state. Over 100 years ago, Gaudi foresaw today's disaster thanks to Darkrai. He specifically built the Tower of Time and Space. Playing Orion within the tower will calm the enraged Pokémon." Upon hearing this, the frowns on Mikali and the others' faces gradually softened. It could be said that Tonio and Alice had brought them good news. Sharona remained silent, her expression still solemn, clearly not as optimistic as Satoshi, Dawn, and the others. She knew full well that Tonio's solution must involve some crucial unresolved problem. Otherwise, Alice and Tonio could have accomplished the simple task of playing a piece of music on their own. Why go to all the trouble of asking them for help? After a brief moment of contemplation, Sharona calmly asked, "Teachers, what do you need us to do?" Tonio hesitated, then replied awkwardly, "Gaudi left the music disc in the lab. If we want to appease Dialga and Palkia's wrath, we need to find it first." Instantly, as Tonio finished speaking, everyone fell into a deathly silence. Even the passionate young men, Satoshi and Pikachu, wilted like eggplants struck by frost. It was obvious they had all realized a huge problem. No one knew where the music disc was hidden. Mikali sighed softly, his expression growing even more melancholic. With a wry smile, he said, "Teachers, without a rough location, searching for a music disc in this vast town of Beiyang is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Besides, we don't have much time right now. We don't have much time for trial and error." As he spoke, Mikali gestured towards the lavender energy emanating from the surrounding buildings. Countless buildings vanished in an instant, devoured by the lavender energy. Everyone's eyes, filled with complex shock and awe at Mikali's warning, suddenly felt a surge of powerlessness. Lu Feng, observing the silence, sensed a growing heaviness in the atmosphere. He coughed softly, drawing everyone's attention. Sharona, observing Lu Feng's calm expression, his gaze fixed toward the Tower of Time and Space, couldn't help but look thoughtful. Mikali asked, puzzled, "Mr. Lu Feng, have you discovered anything?" Lu Feng nodded appreciatively, feeling a strange sense of empathy. Under everyone's expectant gaze, Lu Feng spoke meaningfully. Since Gaudi could foresee what was happening, he must have considered the worst-case scenario. "So, I think Gaudi would have placed the Eurasian music disc right there." Following Lu Feng's explanation, everyone followed his finger and saw the towering Tower of Time, lost in thought. It wasn't until a moment later that Sharona's voice broke the silence, allowing everyone to slowly react. "It's indeed possible. Placing the music disc inside the space-time tower would be the most appropriate option. After a brief discussion, it was decided that Ash and his companions would proceed to the top of the space-time tower to activate the entire machine and wait, while Tonio and Alice would head to the tower's lobby to search for the music discs. Arona, Mickley, and Darkrai, on the other side, would remain outside the tower to prevent damage from the energy splashing from the sky. Seeing everything ready, Feng unleashed Garchomp and mounted him, approaching the battlefield above. Meanwhile, the battle between Reshiram and Palkia continued, while the fight between Kyurem and Dialga shifted to another location. Upon noticing the appearance of Feng and Garchomp, Reshiram couldn't help but let out a low, warning hum. Feng communicated with Reshiram through wave guidance, signaling him to lead the injured Palkia to a nearby location. Reshiram was somewhat surprised, unaware of Feng's current intentions, but he still followed his instructions, flapping his wings and sprinting towards the designated location. Palkia, completely bewildered, saw this and without further consideration, the pearl on his arm ignited again. A powerful special force instantly slashed out, striking Reshiram like a lavender blade, and he followed in pursuit. Soon, Reshiram arrived at the designated location and flew behind Feng without looking back. As Palkia arrived, he looked at Feng and Garchomp before him, a sudden sense of panic rising within him. His innate sense of danger made him anxiously scan for any possible danger. But before Palkia could take a closer look, he saw Feng pull a square object from his backpack. It was Arceus's water drop slate. At that moment, Feng pointed the slate squarely at Palkia. Palkia watched the scene with trepidation. Though blinded by rage, she could still sense the Arceus slate's restraint. She ignored Reshiram and flew away. But how could Feng let him escape like that? He tapped into the wave power within his body, temporarily transforming the water drop slate into a seal, unleashing a long unseen wave sealing technique. A second later, the energy within the water drop slate transformed into countless chains, hurtling towards Palkia in the sky. They trapped him and dragged him back into the temporary extra-dimensional space within the slate. No matter how Palkia struggled, he couldn't break free from the slate's hold. After all, the water drop slate came from Arceus and, to a certain extent, could restrain the twin dragons of time and space. Even the red chains formed from the power of the three lake gods could control them, let alone a slate unique to Arceus. Afterwards, after temporarily trapping Palkia, Feng shifted his gaze to another place and stared straight at Dialga. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 437, Oration. Then, with Reshiram's help, Feng gradually approached the battlefield between Kyurem and Dialga. Kyurem dominated Dialga, unleashing countless ice and fire skills, dealing immense damage to the already disadvantaged Dialga. Had Dialga not been able to manipulate time, hindering Kyurem's movements to some extent, Dialga's situation would likely have been even more disastrous. Seeing Feng and Reshiram appear, the utterly distraught Dialga's eyes crimson, a surge of unease and fear rising within him. He was about to flee the battlefield when Reshiram attacked with unbridled force. His scorching jets of flame instantly transformed into flames, pinning him in place. Roar! Dialga roared, attempting to cleave the sea of fire with his own skills, but before he could act, Kyurem's frigid flames descended again, knocking him to the ground. At the same time, Feng silently removed the dragon slate from his backpack and aimed it at Dialga on the ground, performing the same wave sealing technique. A second later, countless chains burst forth from the dragon slate, entrapping and sealing Dialga before Kyurem's astonished gaze. As Dialga vanished, Kyurem and Reshiram's eyelids fluttered, their eyes gazing at Feng with caution and awe, seemingly deeply wary of his wave sealing technique. Reshiram, in particular, felt a lingering sense of dread, even though this was the second time he'd seen Feng use this method to seal a powerful high legendary. Finally, we've quieted them down for now. Now we just have to wait for Ozzy and the others to play Oration. Feng breathed a sigh of relief, wiping the sweat from his face as everything went according to plan. Time passed in a flash, and soon after Dialga and Palkia vanished, Oration's music began playing from the Tower of Time and Space. Its clear, melodious melody echoed throughout Poplar Town, gradually calming countless anxious and panicked Pokémon and humans, bringing a strange sense of peace to their hearts. Feng, listening to the music, could easily sense its power. It seemed to possess a soothing quality, calming all rage and anger, instantly calming the beings that hurt it. After a brief moment of contemplation, Feng retrieved the stone tablet and once again channeled the power of the wave guide to break the seal. With a dazzling flash of light, Dialga and Palkia reappeared in midair. As if noticing the change in their surroundings, the enraged Dialga and Palkia froze. They were about to resume their fight, but upon noticing Feng nearby, Dialga and Palkia, recalling their recent experience, couldn't help but step back, as if this could bring comfort to their terrified hearts. Feng could only smile helplessly at this, letting Dialga and Palkia retreat. At this moment, Orian's music reached them, causing Dialga and Palkia to freeze in their tracks. Baptized by the power hidden within the music, the fury, ferocity, and crimson glow in Dialga and Palkia's eyes gradually faded, returning to a clear, radiant state. Reflecting on their experiences, they surveyed the surrounding towns on the brink of destruction, unable to resist a low hum. Then, shifting their gaze to Feng, Dialga and Palkia's expressions were filled with complex emotions, filled not only with apology and gratitude, but also with fear and panic towards him. It's easy to imagine the toll that their recent confinement in the dark room had taken on them. Due to the constraints stemming from the attributes late, the twin dragons' renowned ability to manipulate time and space was completely negated, rendering them unable to escape by entering another dimension. If Feng hadn't taken the initiative to break the seal, Dialga and Palkia wouldn't have had any chance of re-emerging anytime soon. Feng looked at the panicked space-time dragons and couldn't help but touch his nose, muttering to himself, "I didn't expect the space-time dragon's biggest fear was being locked up in a dark room." The thought of knowing their weakness suddenly brightened Feng's eyes, and he looked forward to the opportunity to exploit them. However, before that, the most important task was to restore Poplar Town to Dialga and Palkia. Feng raised his head, staring directly at Dialga and Palkia, and pointed across Poplar Town, whispering, "Dialga, Palkia, I hope you can restore Poplar Town." Dialga and Palkia, sensing the chaotic forces of spacetime and the aura of destruction that permeated the town, fell silent. They knew full well that the disaster befalling Poplar Town was caused by their own battle, so there was no reason to refuse. The azure diamond on Dialga's chest shone brilliantly, and a powerful force of time erupted, spreading in all directions. With Dialga's control of time, the vanished buildings, plants, and trees in Poplar Town instantly returned, as if the disaster had never occurred. Not to be outdone, Palkia quickly harnessed the power of space. The lavender pearl on her arm glowed, forcibly calming the chaotic space-time forces within the town and dragging Poplar Town back from the rift between time and space into the real world. In that instant, the dark night and crackling thunder that had enveloped Poplar Town vanished. The sky cleared once more, and the warm sun shone down, restoring everything to its former self. Standing atop the space-time tower, Tonio and Alice, watching the scene unfold before them, burst into tears of joy and embraced each other in excitement. "We succeeded." Zaya Ozzy and Zaya Agwan couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. They watched the excited Tonio and Alice quietly leave the Tower of Time and Space, leaving the space to them. Sirona and Mikali's eyes were filled with smiles, and their tense bodies gradually relaxed. Looking at the young man bathed in sunlight in the sky not far away, they couldn't help but feel a little dazed. At the same time, the moment Bayang Town was restored, the system's voice sounded, echoing directly in Feng's ears, "Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the legendary quest, Decisive Battle in the Tower of Time and Space, and obtain Steel Essence 1 and Dragon Essence 1. Feng was not surprised by the system's prompt at all. After silently glancing at the two essences in his backpack, he ignored it. Right now, Feng had more important matters to attend to, like fleecing Dialga and Palkia. Dialga and Palkia noticed a faint green light in Feng's eyes and shuddered, silently taking a few steps back, as if this would reassure them. A few minutes later, Baron Albert and Brock arrived, and everyone gathered in front of the Space-Time Tower's plaza. To express his gratitude, Baron Albert invited everyone to his villa. As the sky grew darker, Mikali, Zaya Ozzy, and the others considered it for a moment before accepting Baron Albert's invitation. Feng and Sharona exchanged a smile and followed the others towards Baron Albert's villa. Elsewhere, in the Sinar region, at the Medina ruins, Koban and Sheena breathed a sigh of relief when they saw the vibrations of the space-time observatory subside and the space-time anomaly cease. They knew full well that Feng and Sharona had prevented the fight between Dialga and Palkia. However, They were somewhat concerned because the time-space turmoil had pushed Arceus's resurgence significantly forward again, gradually shortening it to less than 3 months. Sharona and Cobbin could only pray that no further mishaps would occur, preventing Arceus's resurgence from being further accelerated. P.S. Thanks to Bad Wife Xiao Meng for the inspiration capsules and Duo Mu for 2 bottles of Babo milk tea in a gift. Chapter 438, Twin Dragons of Time and Space equal to tutoring? The next morning, just as the morning star rose over the eastern horizon, a faint fragrance emanated from the Pokémon courtyard, quickly permeating the entire town of Poplar. Poplar Town was completely silent, its streets and alleyways as clear as a pristine wash, showing no trace of the previous day's disaster. Just after 8 o'clock, Lu Feng emerged from Baron Albert's villa, yawning as he walked towards the Pokémon courtyard. About 15 minutes later, Lu Feng reached a quiet spot on the Pokémon courtyard and used his Transcendence power to summon Dialga and Palkia. Transcendence, the laws of space and time. Dialga, Palkia, please show yourself. As Lu Feng's voice fell, 2 special ripples appeared above his head, faintly revealing 2 dimensions distinct from the real world. At this moment, before Dialga and Palkia could appear, Darkrai, hidden within the Pokémon courtyard, felt the power of space and time emerge, and his expression changed slightly. Thinking Dialga and Palkia were about to invade Poplar Town again, Darkrai transformed into a murky black mist, emerging from the shadow of a haystack not far from Lu Feng. But upon realizing it was Lu Feng summoning them, Darkrai breathed a sigh of relief. Perhaps sensing Darkrai's gaze, Lu Feng instinctively turned around. Seeing Darkrai hovering around the haystack, he patted his head sheepishly. Darkrai, I have something to ask Dialga and Palkia. I won't let them destroy Poplar Town, don't worry. Darkrai was silent for several minutes, then nodded to Lu Feng and vanished from his sight. Although Darkrai didn't particularly want Dialga and Palkia to enter Poplar Town, remembering Lu Feng's help yesterday, he chose to trust him. Darkrai, never mind. Just consider it a favor, after all, what can we do if we don't give him this face? Kyurem, Reshiram, and Groudon are still watching him eagerly. A moment later, the energy reaction in the special ripples became stronger and stronger, and 2 brilliant rays of light quickly emerged from them, directly in front of Lu Feng. The next moment, when the light completely disappeared, the figures of Dialga and Palkia reappeared. They looked at Lu Feng with complicated eyes, lowered their dragon heads and let out a low roar. Roar. Human trainer, why did you summon us here? Lu Feng listened to Dialga's question and did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked at them carefully for a while. Seeing that the injuries of the 2 legendary dragon gods had stabilized and were constantly recovering, he gradually felt relieved. Lu Feng's dark eyes gleamed. He gently rubbed his hands together and, without hesitation, released all his Pokémon. He looked directly at Dialga and Palkia and said, Dialga, Palkia, I hope you can give these children some guidance. He gestured towards this Pokémon, quietly awaiting their response. Dialga and Palkia exchanged a bewildered glance at Lu Feng's words, then fell silent. If it weren't for their image, these 2 powerful dragon gods from Sinnoh's legends would have been tempted to curse Lu Feng. They were the dragon gods who govern time and space, their primary duty being to maintain its stability, not to tutor human trainers' Pokémon. Lu Feng's words weren't particularly hurtful, but they were deeply insulting. As time ticked by, Dialga and Palkia remained silent, and Lu Feng's temper grew increasingly strained. He silently flicked his wrist and placed his right hand on his neck, causing Dialga and Palkia's eyelids to flutter. They quickly said, Human trainer, we agree to your request, consider it a thank you for your help these 2 times, Palkia added, his voice filled with resentment and reluctance. Lu Feng, is this too much of a stretch? Dialga and Palkia, no. First, put down those 3 master balls. Seeing Dialga and Palkia nod seriously, without the slightest sign of coercion, Lu Feng's face lit up with joy, and he silently lowered his hands. As expected, legendary Pokémon are quite reasonable, Lu Feng thought to himself. Then, under Lu Feng's arrangement, Articuno and Lucario were pushed directly in front of Dialga, Garchomp and Jengar were pushed to Palkia, and the remaining Pokémon took the opportunity to plunder, a chance to improve their strength. Dialga and Palkia were helpless, but they could only accept it. Darkrai, lurking nearby, watched Lu Feng and the Chronodrake's direct maneuver and swallowed hard, his blue eyes filled with shock. Time flew by, and a week passed in a flash. During this week, Lu Feng's Pokémon lived a comfortable life, arriving at the Pokémon courtyard at the appointed time each day, awaiting the appearance of Dialga and Palkia. Lu Feng's attendance at classes was probably not this diligent and punctual, and it made him feel ashamed. Darkrai, once wary, had also gone to apathy and indifference. As long as Lu Feng's Pokémon and the Chronodrakes didn't destroy the Pokémon courtyard, he wouldn't appear again. With the help of Dialga and Palkia, Lu Feng's Pokémon's strength reached new heights, with several Pokémon that were still near champion levels gradually approaching them. Lu Feng was particularly excited by the progress of Articuno. With Dialga's full support, Articuno continuously comprehended the power of time, finally able to freeze the time contained within his ice, increasing it from a few seconds to 10. As for the remaining 4 champion Pokémon, while their improvement wasn't as dramatic, their strength was steadily increasing, and perhaps a small breakthrough would come soon. During this period, Giratina, after dealing with the garbage from the reverse world, discovered that Dialga and Palkia were still in Poplar Town. Unable to resist, he traveled from the reverse world to Poplar Town and attacked them. Fortunately, Darkrai and Lu Feng acted quickly and dissuaded the enraged Giratina. Gazing at the twin space-time dragons across from him, and Kyurem, Reshiram, Groudon, and Darkrai forming a pincer attack on one side, Giratina remained silent for a long time. Ultimately, he agreed to reconcile with Dialga and Palkia, no longer pursuing their impact on the reverse world. Lu Feng expressed great satisfaction at this. To thank Giratina for his understanding, Lu Feng specifically reminded Giratina to release Professor Muxun Glassland from the reverse world and to notify Sharona to dispatch forces to search for Zero. He hoped to apprehend Zero beforehand, preventing him from turning his attention to Giratina and potentially causing adverse consequences. Sadly, whether Zero had received a warning or was simply out in the wild, the Sinnoh failed to locate Zero. This made Lu Feng shake his head and sigh. Chapter 439. Next stop, Crown City. January 27th, the Poplar Town Glamour Contest officially concluded. Mickley bid farewell to Lu Feng and Sharona before departing Poplar Town and returning to Hoenn. After Xiaoguang received the Poplar Town Glamour Contest winner's medal, Satoshi and his group bid farewell to Lu Feng and Sharona, continuing on to their next destination, Mutong Town. Sharona had also returned to Suzerain Island 2 days prior, apparently having received news about Zero and determined to prevent his madness. Lu Feng, as usual, visited the Pokémon courtyard. Seeing the Pokémon gradually reaching their limits, he also considered leaving Poplar Town. After all, he had been there for over a week. Therefore, upon meeting Dialga and Palkia, Lu Feng directly explained his intention to leave and told them not to come to Poplar Town tomorrow. Hearing Lu Feng's words, Dialga and Palkia couldn't help but burst into tears, secretly breathing a sigh of relief. The Pokémon overheard Lu Feng's exchange with his space-time dragons and realized their training would come to an end. They could only sigh in regret. A few minutes later, spatial ripples appeared again in the sky, and Dialga and Palkia returned to their respective dimensions without looking back. After watching the space-time dragons depart, Lu Feng approached Darkrai, bid him farewell, and requested his assistance in a battle in a few months. Darkrai was somewhat puzzled, wondering what kind of enemy Lu Feng, with his current strength, could possibly face that would make him so cautious. However, recalling Lu Feng's assistance during the Battle of Poplar Town, Darkrai readily agreed to Lu Feng's request. After all, in Darkrai's view, as long as Lu Feng wasn't fighting Arceus, and with 3 high-level legendaries at his disposal, wouldn't his assistance guarantee victory? Darkrai's blue eyes stared at Lu Feng's retreating figure for a long moment before he retreated into the shadows and returned to the Pokémon Garden. Elsewhere, shortly after leaving the Pokémon Garden, Lu Feng didn't leave Poplar Town directly. Instead, he arrived at the plaza in front of the Tower of Time and Space. He sat on a bench, listening to Oration's beautiful melody and pondering his next move. After a moment's contemplation, Lu Feng decided to continue his challenge to the World Championships and complete his level up. He slowly raised his head, looking at Rotom with a thoughtful expression, and said, "Rotom, research all current Ultra Ball level players in the Sinnoh region." Rotom heard this, quickly searching for relevant information. About a minute later, Rotom retrieved the information for all the existing Super Ball level players in the Sinnoh region, organized and archived it accordingly, and reported directly to Lu Feng. Currently, there are 178 Super Ball level players remaining in the Sinnoh region, distributed in the following cities: Wetland City, Cutting Edge City, EMI City, Crown City, Black Gold City, and And coastal city, wait, Lu Feng, upon hearing the name of a city mentioned by Rodham, seemed to remember something important and interrupted him. Rodham, focus on the information for Crown City. Rodham looked at Lu Feng in surprise, unsure of the implication, but followed his instructions and directly retrieved the information for the Crown City contestants. Lu Feng, there are 15 Super Ball level competitors in Crown City. The highest ranked is Anthony, ranked 398th, and the lowest is Iris, ranked 889th. If you defeat all the competitors in Crown City, you're expected to rank in the top 120 of the Super Ball level. Lu Feng nodded, but didn't speak directly. After a few minutes of reflection, Lu Feng slowly looked up at Rodham and continued to ask, by the way, Rodham, are there any major tournaments in Crown City soon? Rodham quickly searched the internet for relevant information, nodded, and replied, in 5 days, Crown City will host this year's Pokémon World Cup. Also, according to relevant media reports, the president of the Kaute Cyber World Group will be bringing his 3 sacred beasts to the Pokémon World Cup finals in 5 days. Lu Feng's eyes suddenly brightened when Rodham mentioned the Pokémon World Cup in Kaute's name. After careful consideration, Lu Feng decided on Crown City as his next destination. A few days earlier, when Articuno's time-stopping ability had reached a breakthrough under Dialga's guidance, Lu Feng had asked Dialga about the issue. Dialga's solution was to draw on the power of time to increase its power. Since Articuno wasn't a legendary Pokémon and didn't possess any time-related powers, the only way to further enhance its time manipulation abilities was to absorb the power of other Pokémon with time-based abilities. After all, there's a difference between innate and acquired abilities. Unfortunately, Dialga's time-based powers were simply beyond the reach of Articuno, a Pokémon at the peak of its power, forcing Lu Feng to seek another solution. Throughout the Pokémon world, the only Pokémon with the power to control time, besides Dialga, the god of time, were the mythical Pokémon Celebi, who could travel through time at will. As for other Pokémon like Tapu Koko and Kalos's special Rodham, while they possess the ability to travel back in time, they are merely isolated instances and cannot be replicated. Therefore, Lu Feng ultimately placed his hopes on Celebi. As a mythical Pokémon with its own tribe, Celebi naturally inhabits all regions of the Pokémon world, such as Johto's Paulownia Grove, Hoenn's Orange Forest, Unova's Lost Woods, and Galar's Aqua Forest. Celebi's last known location in Sinnoh is Crown City, a perfect blend of water and greenery, ancient streets, and modern architecture. 20 years ago, while traveling in Crown City, Kote deciphered ancient texts and learned that obtaining Celebi's time ripple would grant the ability to foresee the future. To fulfill his ambition, Kote devised a plan to harness the power of time ripple in advance. Unable to replenish its own life force, Celebi fell into a critical condition, causing widespread withering and death of plants throughout Crown City. Celebi never returned to Crown City. It could be said that the chances of encountering Celebi in Sinnoh had become even slimmer. However, through his memories, Lu Feng could clearly see that thanks to the unremitting efforts of all the citizens of Crown City over the past 20 years, the city's plants had regrown and flowers were blooming once again. Their efforts moved Celebi and attracted a Celebi to revisit Crown City soon. With this thought in mind, Lu Feng immediately instructed Rodham to search for the relevant route and release Charizard, following Rodham's guidance, to fly towards Crown City. Chapter 440, Zoroark, the Phantom Overlord. Meanwhile, just as Lu Feng was rushing to Crown City, a massive passenger plane soared through the dark clouds high above, not far from the city. The roar of its engine shattered the silence beneath a crescent moon. A Zoroark huddled in a dim corner of the cabin, silently sprawled on the cold floor, its eyes tightly closed, a look of resentment on its face. Perhaps sensing its inner turmoil, Zoroark, hidden within its crimson mane, couldn't help but poke its head out. Unsteady on its feet, it quickly fell from its shoulders. Fortunately, Zoroark opened its eyes in time, saw Zoroark fall, and quickly lifted him up. A loving expression crossed Zoroark's face, and it licked Zoroark repeatedly, seemingly releasing all its suppressed emotions. At that moment, with a clang, the door to the room opened and closed automatically, a bright light streaming into the pitch-black space from outside, instantly catching the attention of Zoroark and Zoroark. A moment later, as the door opened completely, the 3 holy beasts appeared before Zoroark. Kote and Ryuka stood behind a protective glass, observing Zoroark's current situation. Upon noticing the 3 holy beasts' appearance, Zoroark suddenly stood up, growling at them and Kote nearby, his eyes filled with ferocity. Kotei and Ryuka, seemingly accustomed to the scene before them, showed no other expression. Ryoka lowered her head and said to Kotei beside her, "Mr. Kotei, we're ready to make the final adjustments." Kotei smiled grimly at him and whispered, "Action start." Shortly after Kotei finished speaking, the Thunder God standing before Zoroark bared his sharp fangs and roared loudly, as if ready to attack. Zoroark showed little fear. He first tucked the grounded Zoroark back into his crimson mane, then assumed a fighting stance, his gaze filled with a cold glint and chill. Seeing Zoroark's actions, Kotei's smile widened. "Zoroark, let me see how much you value Zoroark." Zoroark's eyes trembled at the words, his expression frozen in an instant. The rage within him suddenly erupted, and he unleashed his most powerful transformation ability. A flash of lavender light flashed, and Zoroark transformed into the form of Reikau, confronting the three sacred beasts. The next moment, Kotei nodded in satisfaction, and Zoroark's Reikau, his body woven with golden lightning, suddenly appeared. A powerful dark cloud suddenly appeared, spreading outward from its center. The powerful dark mist quickly reached Kotei and Ryuka. Seeing the scene before her, Ryuka's face showed panic, and she couldn't help but step back. Kotei instinctively raised his left hand and activated the illusion-removing ring on his wrist. In an instant, Zoroark's lightning cloud vanished, and Kotei and Ryuka's visions returned to normal. However, the screen above Kotei's left showed the same scene of Zoroark's Reikau controlling the massive lightning cloud, a scene that was undeniably terrifying. Seeing this, Kotei's orange eyes flickered with an inexplicable glint, as if filled with immense satisfaction. Zoroark's illusions can even fool cameras. They're truly exceptional. Zoroark, transformed into Thunder God, remained silent, his expression fiercely gazing at the three sacred beasts before him, his eyes concealing deep hatred and vigilance. Kotei glanced at Curate, standing nearby, with a smile. At his glance, Curate slowly nodded. Manipulating the instrument panel before him and flicking the small switch beneath the three sacred beasts' feet. The next moment, the images of the three sacred beasts began to blur, transforming into three small polyhedrons in an instant. These three sacred beasts were not real Pokémon, but rather illusion cores Kotei had developed using advanced technology. By pre-programming their respective illusions, they could conjure up convincing images for both humans and cameras. Then, Zoroark dispelled the Thunder God illusion and returned to its upright form. Hidden behind its red mane, Zoroark poked its head out, glaring menacingly at Kotei before dropping to the ground. At that moment, another mechanism opened in the ceiling of the room, and an iron-masked ninja, taking advantage of Zoroark's momentary reaction, swooped down and carried Zoroark away. Once Zoroark and the iron-masked ninja vanished, Zoroark's expression shone with rage. A powerful shockwave of darkness erupted from its body, blasting through the room in all directions. Dark explosion. The profound darkness, swirling with a powerful force, shook the room violently, but it was of no use. Despite the immense force, the room remained motionless. Kotei, seemingly anticipating this event, had already fortified the room. No matter how Zoroark roared, he could not break free of its restraints. Time slowly slipped by. From the plane's control panel, Curate spotted Crown City approaching and quickly warned Kotei, "Mr. Kotei, we're almost there." "Excellent. Curate, make all preparations as planned." Kotei's lips curved into a sinister smile. Before departing, he addressed Zoroark. "Zoroark, as long as you cooperate with me, I'll let you see Zoroark once we've completed all our plans. I don't think you'd want anything to happen to Zoroark." Zoroark's pupils shrank at that, and he lunged towards Kotei, slamming hard against the custom-made glass. A sharp crack rang out, but he couldn't break it. As the lights in the room dimmed, Zoroark fell silent again, finally retreating into a corner as if resigned to his fate. Before Ryuka followed Kotei away, her eyes caught Zoroark in the corner of her eyes, a faint flicker of light, as if she were lost in thought. Elsewhere, the Iron Ninja, following orders, led Zoroark away. Halfway through, Zoroark resisted, and the Iron Ninja caught Zoroark off guard, allowing him to break free. With his petite frame and innate ability to transform, Zoroark easily evaded the Iron Ninja and the supporting giant claw mantis, quickly escaping Kotei's plane. He transformed into the same shuttlecock flower he had seen before, following the wind and slowly descending toward the ground. As time passed, the shuttlecock flower was carried backwards by the wind. Before it could even touch the ground, It collided directly with a speeding Charizard and landed directly in Lu Feng's arms. Lu Feng stared at the shuttlecock flower in amazement, his entire body frozen. Oh my god. What the hell is this? SF Express, mission accomplished. But I didn't shop online on Double 12. Lu Feng looked at Giant Zihu with a complicated expression, his heart full of complaints, as if he had suddenly lost his way. After feeling the warmth in Lu Feng's arms, Zoroark, who had transformed into Giant Zihu, began to struggle restlessly. It was not until his eyes met Lu Feng's that he stared at her and quieted down. At this moment, the atmosphere under the moonlight became a little strange. Lu Feng only felt that the wind was so strong in the sky. Chapter 441 Ma, I'm here to save you. Extra update from Zheishan, Highland Security Master. A few hours later, dawn crept up, the morning star rising from the horizon. Lu Feng sat on Charizard's back, basking in the golden sunlight. He gazed at Zoraya, now transformed back to his original form, a thoughtful expression on his face. Through a brief exchange and comparing his memories, Lu Feng finally understood the origins of Zoraya, who had descended from the sky. So, Kote brought you from Unova to Sinnoh. Zoraya lowered his head with disappointment, slumped before Lu Feng. Recalling the events of the past few days, he gritted his teeth and nodded. Ma was captured to protect me. I'm going to that city to help Ma. Zoraya stared down, gazing at Crown City, his eyes growing more determined. Following his gaze, Lu Feng saw a ray of sunlight descending from the sky. The lights of the entire city gradually dimmed, like an ancient crown, lying quietly on the ground. Against the backdrop of the greenery that has already grown in the city, this ancient crown seems to have a bit more vitality and is full of lush greenery. Crown City, we're here. Charizard gradually slowed down, overlooking the entire Crown City, and landed directly in a quiet park. Lu Feng fell from Charizard's body, shook off the morning mist on his clothes, and looked at Zoroark with a bit of fatigue. After landing, Zoroark jumped directly from Lu Feng's arms, his short legs slightly spread out, and landed steadily on the bluestone brick floor of the park. Ma, I'm here to save you, Zoroark said while looking around. Just as he was about to run out, he heard Lu Feng's voice faintly ringing in his ears. Zora, do you know where Kote is now? Do you think you're strong enough to defeat Kote's Pokémon? Or do you think you've surpassed Zoroark in strength? Lu Feng's words echoed, hammering at Zoroark's heart like a jade chime striking a drum. Zoroark, whose spirit had just been high, instantly lost its spirit, and he stopped walking with his head drooping. But I still have to go save Ma. Lu Feng listened to Zoroark's words and didn't say anything else to provoke him. Instead, he slowly walked over to his side, bent down, and stroked the dark red hair on Zoroark's head that bulged like flames. Kote brought Zoroark to Crown City. There must be some conspiracy behind it. Let's wait for a while. When the time comes, I'll take you to rescue Zoroark, and ask him to do me a favor. Zoroark's gray-black ears trembled at this, and he regained his spirit. He suddenly raised his head and looked directly into Lu Feng's clear and pure eyes, whispering, "Really? Will you really help me save him?" Lu Feng nodded gently, his whole body bathed in the golden glow of the rising and setting sun, as if he were wearing a golden robe. "But why don't we expose the conspiracy of that villain Kote now?" Zoroark asked, somewhat puzzled, as he looked up at Lu Feng's figure, a hint of doubt in his light blue eyes. Hearing this, Lu Feng pulled a rotom out of his bag. Then, with deft fingers, he opened the calendar on the illustrated guide, pointed to the relevant date, and confidently said, "Because tomorrow and the day after tomorrow are New Year's Eve and Spring Festival, it's a holiday custom in my hometown, so statutory holidays are off." Hearing this, Zoraya nearly stumbled and fell. He looked at Lu Feng with a twitching mouth, his expression forced into a knot that made everyone burst into laughter. "Fuck statutory holidays? I'm speechless." Zoraya looked at Lu Feng gloomily, feeling a little tired, silently lowering his head and muttering to himself. While Zoraya was brooding, Lu Feng was contemplating something else. It seemed as if the system really hadn't planned to issue him a task. 5 minutes had already passed since Zoraya's request. Can't the level of the Crown City incident be too low? Lu Feng thought to himself. Victini, newly awakened, poked its head out of Lu Feng's arms, curiously eyeing Zoroark nearby. It greeted him with a bimmy. Sadly, Zoroark, now in a state of disinterest, paid no attention to Victini, seemingly lost in its own world. Lu Feng then lifted Zoroark from the ground and headed towards the Pokémon Center, hoping to rest for a while and recover from the exhaustion of 2 days of traveling. Zoroark longed to rescue Zoroark directly, but Lu Feng's words reminded him that his strength alone would be nothing more than a delivery, so he suppressed the urge. Time flew by, and soon it was 2:30 p.m. After a brief rest, Lu Feng left the Crown City Pokémon Center with Zoroark, Rotom, and Victini. As Lu Feng stepped out of the Pokémon Center, he gazed at the lush greenery that greeted him, with trees standing tall and straight along the main street. He casually chose a direction to walk. After finishing his lunch, he addressed Rotom beside him. Rotom, challenge all Ultra Ball level players in Crown City for me. Rotom promptly matched Lu Feng with several players. Lu Feng, your match will be near the park in the center of Crown City. The World Championships aerial photographer Rotom will be arriving soon. Please keep your match time in mind. Lu Feng nodded silently at Rotom's reminder and headed towards the city center. In about 20 minutes, he and his Pokémon arrived at the agreed location. Upon seeing Lu Feng, his opponent, Iris, looked cautious and wary. Elise had studied Lu Feng's videos, watching highlights from the World Championships official website. She knew there was more to Lu Feng than meets the eye. Despite being accompanied by two adorable Pokémon, Elise showed no signs of complacency, sharing a look similar to that of Swampert, as if he'd seen through everything. This left Lu Feng perplexed, unsure what to expect. After Rotom appeared and officially announced the start of the match, Elise and Lu Feng simultaneously released their Pokémon. Elise watched Lu Feng's Tajukas and immediately commanded his Dragonite to launch an all-out attack. Upon hearing this, the gym-strength Dragonite wielded its powerful purple claws, scattering poisonous needles like flowers, quickly reaching the Tajukas. Just as Tajukas was about to strike, a shield of light rose from its body, blocking the Dragonite's venomous sting. It gazed at the Dragonite with a faint smile. Sharp air slashes shot down from the sky, landing harshly on the ground. A puff of thick smoke followed, and the Dragonite collapsed helplessly. Elise watched the scene in a daze, seemingly still unaware. After Rotom announced the results, Lu Feng and his three Pokémon left the park in the center of Crown City and headed to the next competition venue to continue his leveling journey. Chapter 442, Is Wangwan City also rushing for the Spring Festival travel rush? Extra update from the Zacian Gang, Highland Security Master. In front of the Crown City Clock Tower. Dragon Baruto, Dragon Arrow. As Lu Feng's voice fell, the Dragon Baruto shook itself, and the Dragon Messiah, hidden in a hole in its corner, shot out like a sharp arrow. Dragon Arrow. Under the watchful eyes of Anthony, ranked 398th in the Ultra Ball class, the ejected Dragon Messiah quickly reached his Roserade, carrying a powerful impact, repeatedly colliding with Roserade. The next second, Roserade's body, like a kite with a broken string, traced a parabola in midair and slammed heavily to the ground, instantly fainting. Damn it, Anthony watched the scene with a solemn expression, clenching his fists helplessly, finally accepting the outcome of the match. This Dragon Baruto is so powerful. Roserade is no match. Seeing that the match was over, Rotom quickly uploaded the video of the match and announced that Lu Feng had won the challenge. After 2 hours of continuous challenges, Lu Feng finally defeated all of Crown City's Ultra Ball level players. With the accumulated battle points, his current World Championship ranking gradually climbed to Ultra Ball 115th. After the World Championship, Lu Feng, accompanied by Zoroark, who had transformed into Pichu, Rotom, and the invisible Victini, arrived at a famous restaurant in the city. At 4:44 p.m., dusk fell over Crown City. Neon lights flickered dimly, glittering sporadically, transforming the main urban area into a vast golden crown. Illuminated by the setting sun, the colors of Crown City became even more vibrant, as if the stars in the sky had fallen down to the ground, shimmering with dazzling brilliance. As Lu Feng and his companions emerged from the restaurant, before returning to the Pokémon Center, they were met by countless Crown City residents, their faces filled with fear and terror, running rapidly towards Lu Feng, as if fleeing. The crowd rushed in like a surging wave, about to completely submerge Lu Feng. It was a critical moment. Bimmy, Victini reacted and quickly appeared. He tugged at Lu Feng's clothes with great effort, as if trying to pull him into the air and away from the huge crowd. But unfortunately, Victini's strength was not proportional to Lu Feng's size and weight, and there was no way to lift Lu Feng completely. Perhaps sensing Victini's warning, Lu Feng gradually reacted. He looked at the crowd that was about to come towards him, his throat suddenly tightened, and he quickly threw a Pokéball. The next moment, Charizard appeared behind Lu Feng. While it was bewildered, Lu Feng quickly grabbed its back and snatched up Zoroark, who had transformed into Pichu. Hearing Lu Feng's words and noticing the influx of people, Charizard quickly flapped its wings and carried Lu Feng into the air. Victini and Rotom followed closely behind, soaring to a height of 3 meters. They gasped at the endless stream of people, their faces littered with relief. Is Crown City also experiencing the Spring Festival travel rush? Lu Feng quipped, his eyes twitching as he glanced down. Then, observing the crowd below carefully, Lu Feng noticed the panic and anxiety on their faces. His eyebrows raised in surprise, and he pondered. Then, Lu Feng directed Charizard to fly in the opposite direction of the crowd, trying to find the source of the unrest. The fire-breathing dragon nodded, flapped its wings, and soon arrived at a small alley in the city. The entire alley was filled with scorching flames, and choking black smoke billowed up, burning the bluestone brick floor into pitch-black color. Lu Feng stared at the scene in front of him, and the scene of the burning fire was reflected in his pupils. He looked at it carefully for a long time, his brows gradually frowned, and his expression became extremely strange. Although the disaster scene below was full of shock, with the detection of the wave power, Lu Feng could easily find that this so-called disaster of spreading fire was just a visual illusion. At this moment, a flame emperor ran over the eaves, followed by raging flames, and soon submerged many houses. Lu Feng sensed movement nearby and instinctively glanced in that direction. He saw Entei's figure disappear into a blind spot. Then, a thunder god rushed out, enveloping a thick, pitch-black thundercloud, wreaking havoc on Crown City. Then, drawing the rumbling thunderclouds with him, the thunder god leaped into a blind spot and transformed once again into Suicune. As it ran, it transformed into a surging river, as if a massive wave were sweeping over the city. Meanwhile, numerous drones hovered in the sky, capturing the spectacular footage of the 3 sacred beasts destroying Crown City. Not far from Suicune, Zoroark, transformed into Pichu, returned to its original form and, looking towards Suicune's departure, struggled relentlessly, seemingly trying to break free from Lu Feng's grasp and chase after the fleeing Suicune. "Ma, that's my ma, I'm going to find ma." Hearing Zoroark's words, Lu Feng sighed silently, a helpless expression on his face, and gestured to Charizard to quickly pursue. Charizard roared, instantly accelerating and catching up to Suicune. What Lu Feng hadn't noticed was that the footage of them chasing Zoroark was captured by a drone in mid-air and transmitted to Kote. Kote, still in the control room, directing Leica's photo editing of a disaster film, immediately noticed Lu Feng's presence. Seeing Zoroark in his arms, he instantly realized his plan had been exposed. Determined to complete his next move, Kote pondered for a few minutes before furiously staring at the screen and shouting, "Crudo, have the drone take out the trainer behind us. I don't want anyone to hinder my plan until it succeeds." "Yes, Master Kote," Crudo nodded, quickly maneuvering the drone closer to Lu Feng and pressing the attack button. What Kote hadn't noticed was that Crudo had deliberately deviated significantly from the intended trajectory. Instantly, a terrifying electric laser shot out, barreling towards Lu Feng and Charizard. Rayaka's pupils suddenly constricted. She hadn't expected Kote to be so audacious, willing to kill innocent trainers to fulfill his plan. But with Kote still by her side, Rayaka hesitated to act rashly. She suppressed her inner turmoil, feigning calm and praying for Lu Feng's safety. Elsewhere, Lu Feng and Charizard, still chasing Zoroark, suddenly sensed a strong threat. He quickly maneuvered Charizard aside, just in time to see a hissing electric laser beam pierce through their position and strike the streetlight. The next moment, the streetlight emitted a strange sound as the drone's electric laser beam cut it in half, crashing heavily to the ground. Lu Feng stared at the streetlight expressionlessly, his anger rising. He could only imagine what would happen if such an electric laser beam struck a person. Even a super newbie wouldn't be able to withstand it. A moment later, Lu Feng suddenly raised his head and looked at the approaching drones, his eyes filled with coldness. His lips moved slightly, and after making a mouth shape, he directly launched several wave missiles, knocking down all the approaching drones. "Lu Feng, you are dead." Chapter 443, Koutai's Distraught Soul. At this moment, Zoroark, still fleeing ahead, under the guise of Suicune, noticed a movement behind him and couldn't help but glance out of the corner of his eye. Upon seeing Zoroark held in Lu Feng's arms, his dim eyes instantly brightened. He reversed course and sprinted towards Lu Feng. Zoroark purred softly, its crimson mane blazing like flames as a powerful dark shockwave erupted from its body, striking Lu Feng and Charizard. Dark Blast. As the Dark Blast approached, Charizard raised its head and roared loudly. The colorful flames on its tail blazed fiercely, unleashing a blazing stream of flame. Jet Flame. Instantly, the powerful energy of the Dark Blast collided with the scorching energy of the Jet Flame, triggering a terrifying explosion that shook the nearby ground slightly. Countless dust and smoke filled the air, mixed with choking black smoke, causing people to cough violently after inhaling the choking smoke. Lu Feng noticed that the thick smoke was sweeping over, and quickly signaled Charizard to land on the ground to avoid being shocked by the thick smoke while in the air. Charizard flapped its wings, raising a gust of wind to blow away the surrounding black smoke, and slowly landed on the ground. After a while, the thick smoke gradually dissipated, and Zoroark's figure reappeared in front of Lu Feng and his group. Looking at Zoroark, who was filled with righteous indignation, Lu Feng felt a little helpless. Not only did he have to deal with Kotei's attack, but he also had to be careful of attacks from his teammates. This wave was simply a 1-on-9 rhythm. After thinking for a while, Lu Feng quickly loosened his arms around Zoroark after noticing that the fierce light in Zoroark's eyes was getting brighter and the cold light was reflected on his white sharp teeth. Zoroark didn't have time to react before he felt his body plummet downwards. He quickly swung his limbs to land smoothly on the ground. He glanced at Lu Feng with disapproval, then trotted over to Zoroark, looking up at him with gleaming pale blue eyes and rubbing against him. "Ma!" Zoroark heard Zoroark's voice, lowered his head, and sniffed its scent. After confirming it wasn't an illusion created by Kotei's illusion collar, he quickly tucked Zoroark back into his mane, protecting it. Then, Zoroark turned his attention to Lu Feng and Charizard, roaring a warning and trying to drive them back. Having suffered the pain of Kotei, Zoroark no longer trusted humans, and his gaze towards Lu Feng was filled with a hint of paranoia. Lu Feng grew even more frustrated by Zoroark's actions. He sighed silently and called out to Zoroark with a hint of resignation, "Zoroya, won't you explain?" Zoroark, upon hearing Lu Feng's voice, peeked out from behind Zoroark's crimson mane. As if noting the current tension, an embarrassed expression crossed his face. Then, with Zoroark's continued explanations, Zoroark gradually lowered his guard, the sharpness in his eyes softening. He howled at Lu Feng, as if thanking him for his help and apologizing for his misunderstanding. A faint smile crossed Lu Feng's face, and he shook his head gently. He said seriously, "Zoroya, I have a score to settle with Kotei. Can you tell me his location?" At the mention of Kotei's name, Zoroark's previously calm eyes suddenly darkened with a cold gleam. Anger, hatred, and fury all merged, and he howled toward the sky. After completely venting its rage, it gradually came to its senses and nodded solemnly to Lu Feng. Meanwhile, on the lake near Crown City, on Kotei's private plane, Kotei stared at the screen before him, which had already turned to snowflakes. The veins on the back of his hand gradually bulged. Recalling Lu Feng's mouth shape, his face suddenly darkened, like a ferocious beast choosing its prey. Crud, keep sending out the drones. I'm going to teach that trainer who ruined my plans a lesson. Yes, Master Kotei, Crut replied loudly, sensing the suppressed anger in Kotei's voice. I'll arrange it right away. Kotei nodded. After thinking about his plan, he added, send an additional group of drones to monitor Zoroark. Don't let it discover that Zoroark has escaped. I won't allow this plan to be sabotaged until it's complete. No one can stop me from obtaining the time ripple. Although Kotei longed to use the foresight granted by the time ripple to locate Lu Feng and Zoroark, for some reason, his foresight didn't work on Lu Feng. Therefore, he could only resort to this ordinary method, hoping to prevent Lu Feng from ruining his plan. Following Kotei's orders, Crut quickly mobilized the two drones on board and opened the rear hatch to release all of them. The next moment, countless drones took off and flew out of the hatch, heading for Crown City. But before they could get far, a blazing flame streaked across the sky, destroying many of the drones. The remaining drones, blasted with flames, burst into flames and burst into flames. Master Kotei, this is bad. Crudo, watching the last image of the drone before it was destroyed through the control system, said tremblingly, sweat breaking out on his forehead. Someone is attacking our drone, and the intruder may have already broken into the aircraft. Kotei became even more furious upon hearing this, and was about to send his Pokémon to search for the intruder. But before he could act, Lu Feng and his group smashed down the control room door and appeared before Kotei and his companions. Before Kotei's Shadow Doll and Dream Demon could react, Charizard and Zoroark acted simultaneously, each unleashing terrifying skills and attacks that instantly destroyed them. Kowtai watched in disbelief, attempting to release more Pokémon from his Pokéball. Feng didn't give him the slightest chance, instead using a smaller wave missile to knock the Pokéball from his hand. Feeling the sharp pain in his hand, Kowtai's face darkened. You've trespassed on someone else's ship and illegally detained someone. Aren't you afraid of being hunted down by the Alliance and Interpol? Feng couldn't help but scoff at Kowtai's words. If it were a prominent businessman, or even an ordinary citizen, I'd naturally be concerned, but Mr. Kowtai, you're just a selfish and cruel criminal. Don't forget who caused the disaster in Crown City 20 years ago? Kowtai's body trembled at Feng's words, as if something had struck a chord. He looked up at Feng, his eyes bloodshot. What do you know? You have no evidence. This is just slander, Feng sighed, shifting his gaze to Ryuka, his lips curling slightly. I truly don't have any relevant evidence, but I'm sure reporter Ryuka would be willing to provide it. Ryuka was stunned. She didn't know how Feng knew her identity, but she nodded silently. At that moment, Kowtai saw Ryuka's actions and dropped his hands helplessly, completely distraught. Feng skillfully instructed Rodham to file a report and notified Miss Chuncha from Crown City to come and take Kowtai back to the police station. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 444, Deal with Celebi. Night slowly deepened. Crown City, Arena. Countless Crown City residents had already fled the city, succumbing to Kotei's manipulation of Zoroark's destructive phantoms. All was still, a deathly silence. From the woods surrounding the arena, the fragrance of flowers and plants emanated, gradually enveloping the arena in the gentle evening breeze. Feng, accompanied by Rodham, Victini, and other Pokémon, quietly approached the arena's ancient countdown clock. Using his wave guide power, Feng easily sensed the presence of the ripples of time. A beam of energy, radiating brilliant light, hovered to his right, dazzling and shimmering. However, Feng didn't approach it with Articuno, but waited patiently. After an unknown amount of time, a gentle vibration echoed, reminiscent of the wings of a dragonfly in flight. Under the still moonlit night, it caught everyone's attention. Here they come, Feng muttered silently to himself, hearing the strange noises around him. The next moment, Celebi flew through the dim night sky, its thin wings fluttering gently as it quickly appeared near Feng. Looking at Feng, who wore a faint smile, Celebi tilted his head, his expression first frightened, then gradually shifting to surprise. Perhaps sensing the blessing of the forest lingering in Feng, the affinity bestowed upon him by a fellow kin, Celebi didn't hide or become invisible. Instead, it hovered around Feng for a long moment, studying him before flying in front of him and greeting him. As Celebi studied Feng was also carefully observing the Celebi before him. Comparing the aura emanating from this Celebi, he was certain that this Sinnoh Celebi was indeed different from the one he had encountered in Kanto and Johto. At this, Feng sighed silently. After a moment of contemplation, Feng heard Celebi's greeting. He gradually regained consciousness, a warm smile plastered across his face. Celebi, hello, my name is Feng. I'm Ho-Oh's rainbow hero, Reshiram's true hero, the chosen guardian of the world tree, Mew, and the trainer of Groudon and Kyurem. This is Rodham, Victini, and Articuno. They're my companions and friends. Rodham, upon hearing Feng's mention, hurried over to Celebi and greeted him. Hello, Lotto, Chew. Articuno spread its icy blue wings and let out a crisp cry, sending tiny icy crystals flying around. Victini shyly hugged Feng, cautiously poking her head out and whispering to Celebi. Celebi didn't react to Rodham and the other Pokémon's greetings, instead lapsed into a long silence. Celebi was already stunned by Feng's words. The string of titles and the ancient legendary Pokémon mentioned made Celebi swallow hard. Celebi, what kind of godlike player is this? Feng noticed Celebi's expression. Seeing its dazed look, he secretly laughed in his heart. He didn't make any other moves and just stood there quietly. A few minutes later, Celebi gradually reacted. It looked at the calm and composed Feng and became a little restrained. After thinking for a few seconds, Celebi asked tentatively, respected rainbow hero, true hero, guardian of the world tree. Is there anything I can help you with? Lu Feng's mouth curled up slightly when he heard that, and his eyes showed an expression of admiration. He was silent for a few seconds, then pointed to the distant ripples of space-time, rubbed his hands, and said, Celebi, can I discuss something with you, Celebi? Seeing the direction Lu Feng was pointing, immediately had a bad feeling in his heart, but was hampered by Lu Feng's numerous titles and the various legendary figures who might be standing behind him. He was silent for a long moment, then asked with a complicated expression, do you want the ripples of time? Lu Feng nodded, glanced at Articuno, and slowly explained, I hope to use the energy of the ripples of time to enhance Articuno's understanding of time-stopping abilities, so, Celebi, I hope you can grant me this. Celebi quickly shook his head, declining Lu Feng's request. Despite the numerous legendary figures standing behind him, his request involved his own safety. Celebi didn't want to relive the near-death experience he had experienced 20 years ago. As mythical Pokémon that travel through time, the Celebi clan's control over time isn't as strong as that of Dialga, the master of time itself. Each journey consumes a significant portion of a Celebi's energy, save for exceptionally gifted and powerful Celebi who can afford to travel multiple times. The rest of the Celebi must reserve energy before visiting a specific time frame, lest they be unable to travel again after their visit. It's fair to say that the ripples of time are Celebi's lifeline. The Celebi before Lu Feng was clearly not one of the elite few. Seeing the Celebi shaking its head like a rattle, Lu Feng wasn't angry, rather, it seemed like it was par for the course. He looked up at Celebi, lifted Victini into his arms, and said with a faint smile, Celebi, don't be so quick to refuse. I understand your concerns. Victini possesses infinite energy, more than enough to replenish your energy needs. If you still feel unsure, I can trade you with Holy Ash. Upon hearing this, Celebi stared intently at Victini, lost in thought. It didn't directly answer, but it didn't refuse either. Instead, it pondered silently. For Celebi, if it could truly be as Lu Feng suggested, then trading time ripples wouldn't be a big deal. However, Celebi was uncertain, could the Victini in Lu Feng's arms truly be effective? No matter how he looked at it, it seemed unreliable. Watching Celebi, still pondering, Lu Feng signaled Victini with his eyes, asking it to demonstrate its abilities to Celebi. Victini looked at Lu Feng reluctantly, struggling in his arms for a moment, as if protesting his unauthorized intervention. Lu Feng stared at Victini for a long moment, his expression unchanged. He simply said quietly, a bag of cookies. Victini ceased struggling, silently staring at Lu Feng for a moment, then held up 3 small fingers. Beamy, seeing Victini taking advantage of the situation, Lu Feng felt a wave of pain. He wondered how Victini, once as innocent as a sheet of paper, had become so. Lu Feng refused to admit any responsibility. To secure the time ripple, Lu Feng gritted his teeth and nodded, paying the price of 3 bags of cookies for Victini's assistance. After the deal was struck, Victini flew out of Lu Feng's arms and quickly arrived before Celebi. Before Celebi could react, Victini extended his hands and placed them on him. The V-shaped shape formed by his pointed ears suddenly glowed. Instantly, a powerful energy flowed from Victini's body into Celebi's, helping him to replenish the energy consumed during this time travel. With Victini's help, Celebi gradually returned to peak condition. Feeling the abundant energy within him, Celebi slowly raised his head to look at Lu Feng, then glanced at his own time ripples, finally nodding in agreement. Seeing Celebi's nod, Lu Feng's mood instantly brightened, and he gestured with his eyes for Articuno to approach. Articuno understood, flew in front of the time ripples, and touched them in midair. Instantly, the time ripples erupted with brilliant light, and powerful energy flowed through Articuno's body, quickly engulfing it. Chapter 445 Champion Level Articuno. Faced with the powerful energy of the time ripple, Articuno's expression shifted constantly, and its body swayed with increasing amplitude, as if enduring considerable pain. Lu Feng silently observed the changes taking place within Articuno, patiently waiting. He had no concerns or doubts about Articuno's ability to harness the time ripple to enhance its ability to stop time. After all, even a mere human like Kote could absorb the power of the time ripple and gain the ability to foresee the future. If Articuno couldn't even match Kote, Lu Feng felt their clan should be expelled from the legendary Pokémon fold. Time ticked by, and soon half an hour had passed. As the light of the time ripple gradually dimmed until it vanished from Lu Feng's sight, Articuno suddenly opened its eyes. It flapped its wings vigorously, and let out a joyful cry toward the sky. Its aura surged, quickly surpassing the level of a semi-champion. At that moment, tiny ice crystals scattered all around, and a terrifying, oppressive feeling spread. Articuno had successfully broken through to the champion level, becoming Lu Feng's 5th champion Pokémon. Lu Feng nodded with satisfaction, looking at Articuno with an indescribable joy. Celebi and Victini, who had been playing around, sensed a change in Articuno, their expressions instantly changing, and they quickly flew to Lu Feng's side. They examined Articuno with curiosity, their faces filled with caution. Celebi could clearly sense a subtle threat from Articuno at this moment, one that came not from its strength, but rather from some power of time. Celebi didn't know what had happened to Articuno, but he was certain that facing the Articuno before him, if one wasn't careful, it could easily fall into its trap. At this moment, Lu Feng looked at Articuno before him and couldn't help but exclaim, "Articuno, test your current strength." Chirp! Articuno let out a low cry and unleashed a beam of icy light from its mouth. It landed directly on a nearby boulder, shattering without a sound as it transformed into shards of ice. Lu Feng gazed at the scattered shards of ice and rock, a thoughtful expression on his face. He could sense that at the moment the icy beam was fired, time around Articuno paused briefly, like the shutter of a camera. Only the cold, icy blue beam continued its attack along its predetermined trajectory, emitting a dazzling blue-white light. Time seemed to have stopped in that moment. Celebi, observing this scene, was as if he had seen a ghost. Curious, he flew over to Articuno, circling around it, observing it, as if trying to study its condition. But the moment it approached Articuno, Celebi's thin wings froze, nearly sending it plummeting. Fortunately, it reacted in time and quickly spun away from Articuno. When Articuno resumed flight, he patted his chest with a lingering fear, his eyes filled with shock. Another half-hour passed. Lu Feng checked the time and felt a surge of sleepiness. Seeing that his goal for the night had been achieved, he retrieved the advanced ball, retrieved Articuno, and bid Celebi farewell. Afterward, he headed straight for the Crown City Pokémon Center, quickly disappearing near the arena. Celebi watched Lu Feng's retreating figure, its thin wings fluttering gently. It hovered in midair for a moment, then opened a time tunnel and vanished into the time tunnel. Elsewhere, in the Sinnoh region, in the north-central part of the Farewell Fountain, in the Homeward Path Cave. It's said that this is where the souls of the deceased journey to the spirit world. It contains not only ancient mythological relics but also a hidden entrance to the reversed world. The entire cavern was a labyrinth, shrouded in a myriad of mists. If a traveler stumbled upon this place, without a proper map, it would be difficult to escape from the return cave. Not far from the return cavern, within the dense forest surrounding the Farewell Fountain, an immense spaceship lay hidden. Its surface was equipped with numerous jamming devices, sending powerful radio waves through the forest, driving away numerous wild Pokémon and blocking drone and radar detection. Zero sat in the spaceship with a gloomy expression, watching the news on the screen before him. Veins bulged on the back of his hand as he furiously pounded the control panel for a long time. Damn it! How did the Alliance know about my plan? Who leaked my plan? Thinking of the Alliance's recent search for him, Zero was filled with frustration. Fortunately, he had received the news in advance and left town, hiding in the forest near the Farewell Fountain, thus evading the Alliance's pursuit. Otherwise, it's hard to say whether he would be working at a sewing machine in prison right now. Should I abandon the whole plan? Zero, having regained his composure, stared at the news on the screen for a long moment, muttering to himself with a hint of resignation. The thought that his entire plan had failed before he could capture Giratina and fulfill his ambition to become the king of the reversed world filled Zero with dismay. Just then, the virtual screen before Zero suddenly flickered and sounded an alarm, instantly catching his attention. Infone, is something wrong, Master Zero? An unknown email has appeared, alerting the system. The AI Infone appeared on the virtual screen and replied respectfully, for safety's sake, should we destroy it? Zero frowned at Infone's words. He was about to nod his approval, but for some reason, he caught sight of the colorful R symbol on the email. As if possessing some unknown magic, it captivated Zero's gaze, and he swallowed the words that had just been on his lips. As if possessed by some mysterious force, Jello rejected Infone's offer and instead opened the email in front of him and began to read. The next moment, the email's contents appeared in full. Jello scanned it word by word, instantly entering a trance. Mr. Jello, I wonder if you need any help. Perhaps I can help you realize your dream. After a long moment, Jello gradually regained consciousness, his expression changing unpredictably. After a long moment of contemplation, he turned his gaze to Infinity and silently asked, Infinity, can you determine the identity of the sender of this email? Infinity shook her head. Master Jello, the sender may possess an artificial intelligence comparable to mine. We haven't yet discovered their specific identity. I understand. Jello nodded, as if he had been prepared for this and had only asked casually. He knew that if the sender dared to email him, they must be unafraid of his investigation and search. Jello pondered for a few minutes. Finally, the desire to become the king of the reversed world overcame his rationality, and he dialed the number on the email. A moment later, a captivating male voice boomed from the speakers beside the console, reaching Jero's mind. Mr. Jero, I'm glad you're steadfast in your ideals. I'll provide you with the assistance detailed in the email. Before that, please allow me to introduce myself. You can call me Lance. I'm from Team Rainbow Rocket. Chapter 446, Invitation from Team Rainbow Rocket. Zero was stunned by Lance's words. Hearing that Lance was from Team Rocket only made Zero even more confused. If he remembered correctly, Team Rocket had been dismantled 2 or 3 months ago. Even Sakuki, the leader who had single-handedly built Team Rocket to its peak and the former Takawa gym leader, had been imprisoned in the Alliance prison. Suddenly, Zero's eyes flashed with anger, and he angrily demanded, Team Rocket? Aren't they already helpless? Your leader has been arrested by the Alliance. How can you possibly help me? I'm so obsessed as to contact you. It's unbelievable. Lance was silent for a long time after hearing Zero's words. Although his face showed annoyance, perhaps because of Zero's disrespect for Sakuki, he also remembered that this world was not theirs to rule. For the sake of his future plans, Lance decided to be patient and put this matter aside. He would make Zero pay for his words today after Team Rainbow Rocket conquered the world. He took a deep breath, suppressed all his anger, and his tone turned slightly colder. No, Mr. Zero, I think you've misunderstood. I'm not from Team Rocket, I'm from Team Rainbow Rocket. Zero was stunned for a moment, then hesitantly asked, what's the difference? Aren't we all from Team Rocket? Tisk. Lance couldn't help but scoff, as if amused by Zero's words. Hearing the laughter coming from the phone, Zero became even more annoyed and angry. He was about to hang up the phone to end this inexplicable conversation. But before he could act, Lance, as if sensing Zero's thoughts, spoke quickly. Team Rainbow Rocket is an organization that surpasses Team Rocket. We are far more powerful than you imagine. We possess the most powerful UB core, far more powerful than the Pokémon League can rival. Our ultimate goal is to rule all worlds. Within Team Rainbow Rocket, we have members who have achieved their own ambitions, and the legendary Pokémon we control are far more numerous than you can imagine. Mr. Red Sun from your Sinnoh region is one of us. A look of shock crossed Zero's face, and his throat tightened, forcing him to swallow. Listening to Lance's description, Zero found it a bit unbelievable. Could such an organization really exist? Zero wondered, a mixture of anticipation and hesitation, a hint of hesitation. Then, recalling Lance's words, he immediately grasped the key message. Uncertainly, he asked, you just said Team Rainbow Rocket is a massive, trans-worldly evil organization, don't doubt it. Team Rainbow Rocket is just as you imagined, Lance replied proudly, the coldness in his tone gradually softening. Jello couldn't help but pause for a moment. He could hear the passion and pride in Lance's words, but he still didn't fully believe it. After all, this was simply too far-fetched, like someone suddenly telling you Groudon could fly. It was simply un-Pokémon. I still can't believe it. Jello pondered for a few minutes, his thoughts a bit disorganized. Lance chuckled, as if he had already prepared himself for this. After all, words alone are not enough to convince someone who hasn't witnessed Team Rainbow Rocket's strength. Trying to convince someone who hasn't seen Team Rainbow Rocket's strength is as difficult as trying to move a mountain. Time will tell. The most important thing is that we can help you, right, Mr. Zero, with the Sinnoh League in this world on your side. You have no other options except abandoning your plans and leaving Sinnoh, choosing a place where the League is weaker. Since it's come to this, why not try to trust us? Zero's eyes flickered. Indeed, there was some truth to what Lance said. With the Sinnoh League on his side, unless he fled to another region, like Alola, where the League hadn't yet formed, the ultimate outcome would be nothing less than imprisonment. Zero could have done it himself by leaving Sinnoh, but he wasn't willing to let his ambitions die unfulfilled. He admitted that Lance's words had tempted him, but some doubts remained. "I want to know what your purpose is in doing this." Zero pursed his lips, but instead of agreeing directly with Lance, he posed another question. A smile crossed Lance's face at this. From Zero's question, he'd noticed Zero's current leaning towards cooperation with Team Rainbow Rocket. To convince Zero to fully align with them and collaborate, Lance replied, "Of course, it's to conquer this world, but Team Rainbow Rocket has discovered too many worlds, and we don't have the energy to focus on this one right now. So, we hope to recruit members from their original worlds who have achieved their personal dreams. By helping them grow, we can achieve our goal of dominating their respective worlds." Mr. Zero, on behalf of Sakuki-sama, the founder of Team Rainbow Rocket, I extend an invitation from Team Rainbow Rocket. Zero nodded. Though not completely convinced, some of his doubts were dispelled. "Let's put the invitation aside for now. I need to see your sincerity first." Out of caution, Zero didn't accept Lance's invitation, but instead made his own request, as if it were a final test. For Zero, if Lance's words were true, and he could help him obtain Giratina and become the master of the reverse world, then joining Team Rainbow Rocket wouldn't be a big deal. On the contrary, if Lance's words were deceptive, he wouldn't have just spotted Team Rocket's wrecked ship. No matter how you look at it, he'd have won. Upon hearing Zero's words, Lance wasn't the least bit angry at his refusal. Instead, he agreed to his request. Mr. Zero, please wait for good news. We'll use the disaster unleashed by legendary Pokémon to help you divert the Sinnoh League's trainers and investigators, while also luring out Giratina, the world-shaking Giratina. After saying this, Lance hung up on Zero, giving him no time to prepare. "Infancy, can you track that person's location?" Zero's deep eyes darkened, and he looked up at Infancy. Infancy was silent for a moment, then shook her head and replied, "Mr. Zero, the interference is too strong. I haven't been able to track him." Zero said nothing, his eyes fixed on the colorful R mark on the email in front of him, and he sighed softly. "Team Rocket Rainbow, I hope you can really help me." Chapter 447, Team Rainbow Rocket's Plan. Meanwhile, in the southwestern Sinnoh region, on an island near Twinleaf Town, Lance, having just finished a call with Zero, pulled out a specially designed tablet. He skillfully clicked on a video, and Radam's figure soon appeared before Lance. "Radam, how's the Ulala region plan going? I need to know your current progress." Radam shook his head and gave a wry smile. He often considered himself a good guy, but with that smile, he looked even more ridiculous. "Lance, there are some problems with the Ulala region plan. I think we need to change some of the plans." Lance frowned, staring intently at Radam, as if hoping for a satisfactory answer. Seeing Lance's serious expression, Radam sighed and slowly explained, "I've personally verified the current strength of the Cosmoga from the Ulala Ether Foundation. Based on its current strength, it can't even open a small ultra hole, let alone a large passage to ultra dimension. It simply can't meet the requirements of our plan, so, to avoid being exposed for the time being, I didn't try to capture the Cosmogu." "Hasn't the Cosmogu in this world grown yet?" Lance pondered, his expression growing increasingly serious. Finding Cosmogu, opening the Ultra Dimension in the Ulala region, and using it to connect with Team Rainbow Rocket in their original world had always been a crucial part of Lance and Radam's plan. However, they didn't expect that this crucial element of their plan would be impossible to achieve in the short term. This was not only unexpected but also brought many uncertainties to the conquest of the current world. The current world was accidentally discovered by Team Rainbow Rocket while hunting N. The original plan was for Apollo to infiltrate with Grumpy King, first capturing N, who had accidentally escaped, and then gaining a basic understanding of the world to prepare for Team Rainbow Rocket's conquest. However, Team Rainbow Rocket never anticipated that Apollo hadn't returned since arriving in this Pokémon world, which caught Sakuki's attention. This led to Lance and Radam's subsequent infiltration. However, to their dismay, Lance and Radam were faced with the unexpected changes in the current world. Using the otherworldly technology developed by Xiaobo at the Ether Foundation, they weren't able to immediately enter the Pokémon world. Instead, they wandered in an unknown dimension for a long time, until the battle between Dialga and Palkia in Poplar Town caused a breach in the tight space, allowing them to successfully reach this world. Furthermore, due to other factors, perhaps due to Blue Planet's integration into the Pokémon world, the otherworldly technology was damaged by the intense spatial pressure, making it impossible for Lance and Radam to return to their original world. It could be said that the two of them were now isolated and helpless. Thinking of this, Lance fell silent for a long moment, as if pondering his next plan. Radam didn't urge him, knowing that their future rested in Lance's hands. A few minutes later, Lance slowly raised his head. He looked at Radam and said solemnly, "Since the target hasn't been met, the Ulala Ultra Hull project will be temporarily shelved. You will proceed to the Kalos region." Kalos. Radam looked at him with some confusion, then frowned and asked, "Are you sure you don't need me to go to Sinat to assist you with your next plan?" Lance shook his head, his eyes gleaming. "I already have a plan for disrupting the reversed world and causing spatial turbulence, and I've found someone to take the blame for it. All we need to do now is follow the steps. We should be able to create cracks in this world's tight space again," prompting Boss Sakuki and the others to discover the anomaly and send support. Radam breathed a sigh of relief, seemingly gaining more confidence in Lance's plan. "Then what's my purpose in traveling to Kalos, Radam? Don't forget that this world still has many powerful legendary Pokémon. We need to clear all obstacles for Team Rainbow Rocket's arrival." "Lance, what do you mean?" "Yveltal, the Ultra Demon God and the Ender of all things, sealed in Kalos, hasn't revived yet. I need you to find them and release them when the opportunity arises." "Do you want them to consume the power of other equally ancient legendary Pokémon?" Lance nodded gently, a hint of anticipation in his eyes. He believed that if this plan could be completed, the power of the ancient legendary Pokémon in this world would inevitably be reduced, and they might even need to sleep to recover. Once they contacted Team Rainbow Rocket in another world, they could easily conquer this completely different Pokémon world. "I understand," Radam replied solemnly, then disconnected from Lance. Lance stared at the now black screen of his tablet and silently put it away. After a few seconds of thought, he released his captured Super Slayer and headed southwest by water towards the Johto region. He was searching for a suitable target for his next plan, aiming to provoke the wrath of the legendary Pokémon and thereby destabilize the Pokémon world. Meanwhile, just as Lance, Radam, and other members of Team Rainbow Rocket were about to take action, at the harbor in Crown City, Feng, accompanied by Radam and Victini, was seeing off Zoroark and Zoroark. Following Feng's report and the evidence provided by Laika, Kote was imprisoned. To ensure Zoroark and Zoroark's return home, Feng requested a special passage from the Sinnoh League, allowing the two Pokémon from Unova to embark on their journey home. Time ticked by, and the ferry's departure time approached. Feng silently withdrew his gaze from the ferry as it sailed away, and then walked towards the Crown Arena with Radam and Victini. Unbeknownst to Feng, the members of Team Rainbow Rocket had already arrived in the Pokémon world, brewing a massive conspiracy that threatened to unleash a storm on the entire Sinnoh region. Chapter 448, Hoenn Town, a new storm is about to emerge. February 5th. The spring festival of Blue Star Daksha had just passed. The spring sun was warm, the sky clear, and not a single cloud could be seen drifting overhead. Feng, having ended his idle spring festival days, boarded the tram to Hoenn Town, where he had been invited to compete in the World Championships. As the tram continued its journey, passing through mountain forests, the scenery outside the window shifted. Rows of muckbirds flapped their wings and soared into the sky, a spectacular sight reminiscent of migrating geese. Their clear, melodious cries continued, gradually fading into the tram's carriages, drawing the attention of countless travelers. The freshwater lake rippled, shimmering in the golden sunlight. Sea slugs appeared and froze, adding a touch of vitality to the resurrection of nature in this spring. Feng lowered his eyes, gazing out the window. He couldn't help but rub the Victini in his arms, causing it to gnaw on its biscuit with a wry smile. Though it protested Feng's rough handling, it was of no use, and could only reveal a look of despair. Melota sat unseen on Feng's shoulder, her slender, white legs swaying slightly as she hummed a tune, her voice penetrating Feng's ears and bringing him a rare treat. Time flew by. 4 hours passed quickly. The scene outside the window began to change. The once dense forest gradually disappeared, giving way to low-lying reeds, and finally, a continuous field of flowers. Hard-working bees and their queens lingered among the flowers, taking advantage of the sunny spring weather to collect pollen from the blossoms along the tram route to brew delicious, sweet honey. Thanks to the work of the 3 bees and the queen bee, the delicate fragrance of the flowers grew stronger, gradually permeating the train's carriage, bringing intoxicated expressions to the faces of the many travelers. Feng sniffed softly, inhaling the sweet scent that permeated the air, leaning back against the seat with an expression of comfort and enjoyment. Soon after, with a slight shudder, the tram began to slow down, and a small town surrounded by flower fields appeared before Lu Feng. Flower Garden Town, we've arrived. After the tram pulled into the station, Lu Feng hugged Victini tightly, gathered all his belongings, and walked directly out of the station with Rodham and Milota. Shortly after leaving the station, the group paused, taking in the surroundings, and fell into trance. Although he had been mentally prepared, Lu Feng was still shocked by the scene before him. Countless flower fields quickly transformed into a sea of blossoms, the air thick with fragrance. Countless blossoms swayed in the breeze, blossoming in a vibrant display unique to spring. Flower Garden Town, a town overflowing with fragrance. Lu Feng sighed softly, then turned to look at Rodham. Rodham, where's the competition venue? Rodham had just used the photo function in his atlas to record the scene in Lu Feng's album and daily videos. Hearing Lu Feng's sudden voice, he quickly snapped back to reality and checked the information provided by the World Championships Organizing Committee. The competition venue is near the Flower Garden flower fields. Rodham. Lu Feng nodded and followed Rodham's instructions. In about 10 minutes, he walked from the town's tram station to the flower fields. Meanwhile, Rodham, the World Championships Organizing Committee's aerial photographer, and Tony Ma, the contestant challenging Lu Feng, were already preparing in the open space beside the flower fields. Upon seeing Lu Feng's arrival, Rodham read out the rules and officially declared the match open. Lu Feng and Tony Ma simultaneously tossed their Pokeballs, releasing their Pokémon. Two massive Pokémon appeared on the battlefield, accompanied by two flashes of red light. Lu Feng dispatched his own red Gyarados, whose immediate appearance, combined with its loud roar and ferocious, unruly expression, intimidated the opposing Pokémon. The Pokémon before Totem resembled a stone sculpture of a human head, about a meter tall, its face facing north. A tuft of black hair, resembling a beard, adorned its nose, giving it a comical appearance. It was a rock and steel type Pokémon from the Sinnoh region, Utako. Judging by its imposing aura, it was roughly at the level of a quasi-champion. In a regular league tournament, it would have been a strong contender for victory. However, facing Red Gyarados' near-champion level power, it was no match for the odds. Before autonomous Dajao Bibi could attack, the oppressive force emanating from the Red Gyarados sent the Dajao Bibi trembling, leaving little desire to fight. Seeing this, the Red Gyarados growled in dissatisfaction and unleashed a stream of water tail, lashing the Dajao Bibi out. Despite its toughness, the Dajao Bibi didn't collapse. Instead, it awoke from the fear inflicted by the Red Gyarados and quickly used its Railgun ability to repel the Red Gyarados. Facing the Railgun, the Red Gyarados didn't retreat. Instead, it used its immense physique to withstand the damage, then used its iron tail to sap the Dajao Bibi's remaining strength. A moment later, Aerial Rodham confirmed that the Dajao Bibi was incapacitated and declared Lu Feng the winner of the match. His ranking in the Super Ball class automatically advanced 3 spots, to 112th. After completing the challenge, Lu Feng glanced at the nearby flower fields and, with Victini and the other Pokémon, headed straight into the fragrant fields. Before they could get far, a familiar voice came from behind them, stopping them in their tracks. Lu Feng instinctively turned to see Ash and his companions, accompanied by Pikachu and a white hedgehog-like Pokémon with a grass-green back and red flowers on either side of its face. They were quickly approaching him. "Ash, why are you here?" Lu Feng looked at the three in confusion. Then, as if remembering something, he asked uncertainly, "Are you lost again?" Lu Feng understood that after leaving Baiyang Town, Ash and his companions were planning to head to Mutong Town to participate in the Pokémon contest, which wouldn't involve passing through Hoenn Town. Xiaogang blushed at Lu Feng's words, revealing a rare moment of embarrassment. Upon hearing this, Xiaozi and Xiaoguang looked a little embarrassed, but still shook their heads vigorously. "It's a long story, we didn't get lost this time. We came to Flower Garden Town mainly to help this Pokémon and find a flower called Gracidia," Xiaozi said as he took that Sundeer Pokémon out of his arms and showed it to Lu Feng. "Thank you Pokémon Shami." Lu Feng looked at the Pokémon in front of him and subconsciously said its name, and then his face suddenly became stiff. At that moment, Lu Feng's mind had only one thought. It's over. Xiaozi and his team have encountered another mythical Pokémon. The code is correct, there is no traitor. And a new storm is about to hit. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.